printed it out this time.
Why did two?
Good evening and welcome to the August 2nd Litchfield School District meeting. I'd like to start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
We have Mrs. Ames who's remote tonight. Hello, Mrs. Ames. And tonight's...
Hi, everybody. I'm here.
So,
Mrs. Ames, would you be able to share why you're remote tonight and if you're with anybody?
Sure. I am on vacation in North Conway. I am in the basement of my parents' condo all by myself. And that's it.
I will make a motion to authorize Miss Ames to participate and vote remotely this evening.
I'll second.
all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Opposed. All right, the motion passes. We'll be doing roll call votes this evening. Let's see, any changes to the agenda tonight?
Just a couple of the linked documents were refreshed or livened up, so otherwise there are no changes.
Great. Committee reports.
So just in terms of consent agenda, excuse me.
Yep.
For Budget Committee, there were outstanding questions from the last Budget Committee meeting that I believe are still outstanding. Those are within the committee report. I'd like to ask if we can to prioritize those in preparation for the Budget Committee meeting at the end of August, so they have the answers to those questions. In addition to that, just on capital improvement, we haven't met in some time. We were scheduled to meet in early July. We're actually meeting next Monday, August 7th. That's it.
Excellent. I actually got an invitation to join the Energy Committee as a school board rep, and the first meeting is August 10th, so we'll have to add that to another bullet under committee reports. Does anyone have any committee updates? No?
Just, I guess, the other thing that was mentioned is some of you are browsing around and clicking through the school district website from the website committee. Has been refreshed with the new site. There's still some work to do, right, with some forms and files not loading, but I know the team is working on that, and kudos to Kayla and to Chris and to all the people who put in a lot of hard work to make that happen.
We had committed to doing that for early August, and we felt rolling out a less than perfect. If you wait for perfection, we never would have gotten it. So we're ready to go, and we'll keep fixing what's there. So bear with us while the construction banner is on there.
Great. Summary of non-public actions from July 12th, 2023. Mr. Cutter made a motion to approve the June 21st, 2023 non-public session minutes. Ms. Harrison seconded the motion. The motion passed 4-0-0. Mr. Cutter made a motion to approve the June 21st, 2023 non-public minutes. Ms. Harrison seconds the motion. The motion passed 4-0-0. Ms. Ames motioned to approve the nomination of Harrison Erda as CHS PE teacher. Ms. Harrison seconded. The motion passed 4-0-0. Ms. Harrison motioned to approve the nomination of Melanie Smith as pre-K teacher. Ms. Ames seconded. The motion passed 4-0-0. Ms. Ames motioned to approve the nomination of Christine Durhack as CHS math teacher. Ms. Harrison seconded. The motion passed 4-0-0. No student rep.
Not tonight.
Presentation and recognitions.
None?
Great. Community content. Comment. Community comments. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Public comments shall be made without expectation of a response by any school board member to matters raised by such commentary. Comments and statements may be made on topics contained on the agenda. Public commentary should be limited to 3 minutes per person and must identify the first and last name and address of the commenter. The board vests in its chairperson or presiding officer to authorize to terminate the remarks of any individual or closed community forum when they do not adhere to the rules established in policy BEDH. Do we have any community comment tonight? Wow.
A lot of community, no comment.
Correspondence, this is my turn. I was not here in the last meeting, so I have 2 meetings worth of correspondence to report, and I just need to grab it. I'm under the wrong, here we go. This started on June 22nd. J.D. Sun asking if surplus funds were a result of budget freeze. June 22nd, Dan Mitchell attached a statement from all 3 principals stating that there was at no time a budget freeze. June 22nd, Andrew Cutter, Budget Committee highlights. June 26th, Anna Marati manifest. June 26th, Jan Sullivan draft minutes. July 6th, Ann Inamorati credit card manifest. July 7th, Ann Inamorati manifest. July 7th, Kayla Collins sent us the agenda. July 11th, Ann Inamorati manifest. July 11th, Joyce Wilcox, a request to reopen negotiation for the Litchfield support staff. July 12th, Jan Sullivan sends us draft minutes. July 12th, Erica Ruggles asked where to find the agenda. July 12th, Dr. Jetty sent us 2 potential new hire information. July 13th, Kayla Collins sent multiple invitations to future school board meetings. July 13th, there were a lot. July 13th, Dan Mitchell, correction to draft minutes. July 13th, Jan Sullivan, correction to draft minutes. Oh, Jan Sullivan, Jan Sullivan, correction to draft minutes. July 13th, request for a variance to build a shed. That was the wrong person. That was Doug. Someone asked for a request at CHS to build a shed on their land, and they would need a variance. July 15th, Jan Sullivan, meeting minutes. Peter Plansky, comments on meeting minutes. July 26th, Kayla Collins, potential new employee information. July 27th, Donna Boucher, asking the board if they would still like a meeting. August 2nd, Kayla Collins, potential new hire information. August 2nd, Corey Sulzin, advocating for small class sizes. And I stopped at 3:30 p.m. today. Now I'm back. General business, superintendent report.
So we've had a request. Apparently the town has formed an economic development committee, and they have asked for a school board rep to be appointed to serve on that. Details are listed in the agenda. The committee will meet on the last Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. in the town hall, and they are hoping that somebody from the board will join them.
Is that the same as the energy committee you were just
No,
mentioning?
it's different.
Different.
Diane's, my wife's on that committee.
Oh.
So,
So you have a
Date night,
conflict?
Peter.
I don't know. I have to take her out to dinner afterwards anyway, so.
Hey.
Yeah.
Is that an acceptance?
Sure, I'll do it.
So
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you.
I will let Ms. Kleiner know, and we'll add it to the list of committee assignments so that we get the reports back from that. So I'm adding energy and economic development. All right. The second thing was the website update, and I think the key thing is that while it is a work in progress, remember the website committee is intended to be a standing committee. We've talked about having a link on the website where we get feedback. We want, here's something that I think would improve the website, and then the committee would be tasked with reacting to whatever feedback that we get, because we want this to be as friendly as possible. I think even in its construction phase, it plays better on the mobile device, and it is easier to navigate. It's more pleasing to the eye than the old website. We've made some other enhancements, so we'll keep at it, but our goal is to get that website organized and tweaked out for the start of the year, so we're working diligently. And that is what I had for you tonight.
Doug, business and operation?
Yeah, so we are back to having North Branch and their subcontractors working quite a bit at the middle school. So again, the work that they're looking to complete this summer is the kitchen, modifying the kitchen so we can go from more just like heating stuff to cooking and preparing meals, as well as finishing the HVAC in the cafeteria and kitchen, as well as finishing up some other work from their past. So that is North Branch, which is separate. So we have North Branch doing a lot of the HVAC, the kitchen work, and separate from that is the solar work, which they're going through the final engineer designs, and then they'll roll those into permitting, and then we'll get the solar on the roof, hopefully with all that going smoothly sometime in September, they're thinking now. And then the storage for the solar more in 2024. So solar on the roof, solar hooked up, the benefits of solar, at some point in the fall is what we're thinking. And then the future benefits of the storage of the solar and of energy next
So
year.
the fall of 2024 is when we'll see the first benefit?
No, we'll see benefits this fall from the solar going on the roof. Just like most people use solar, that's how we'll be using it now. Our extended use of solar, which is the storage of it, and then, trying to
okay.
kind of use
Battery backup.
Yeah.
battery backup and playing that against demand charges, that will be more of 2024. So by the time that's up and running.
And that remind me, that switch issue that we were talking about and tracking for a while, that's now been resolved and we have that switch on hand?
Yep, we do have that switch on hand and it's been installed.
Okay.
So that's all good news.
Great news.
And we had a meeting on solar at 3:30 this afternoon with fire, the town building inspector, just to go through exactly where we are. We made some good discussion and agreement about how we're going to plug ahead. So it was a very healthy meeting, and it's keeping us on track. And Kay was on site. We had Kay with us being able to answer direct questions, so it was a good meeting.
I know this is a bit later than anticipated, and then even our revised target had solar, I think, being planned over the summer to be installed. So is there any concern now with students going back to school and now construction once again on the roof for solar install?
Definitely concern. Any student, especially middle school students, sometimes are better when they're distraction-free environment. Luckily, where they'll be staging is kind of away from windows. It's in the back corner, away from the windows. They'll be accessing the roof at that point, and it's a ballasted system that is weighed down and not necessarily screwed into the roof. So there's minimal penetrations into the roof. So will it be distracting? Yes. Will it be as distracting as when they replaced the roof a couple of years ago? Luckily, no, not anywhere near there. So we'll look to minimize that as much as possible, but there's going to be there's going to be noise.
Do we know how long the installation will take?
About 6 weeks.
And you said it's going to start again when? September?
September.
September is, yeah.
I didn't think it was 6 weeks, Doug, but it could be that long. I think it was 6 weeks to being fully operational.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Okay. I just
I
meant how
thought
long
the
is it gonna be?
installation time period was faster. Oh, stop.
Maybe she knows. She might know.
Three has the answer.
I meant more, how long will they be on the roof?
Yeah, I
Have
don't.
any
Say
idea?
again, I'm
How
sorry.
long will
long
they
will they
actually
be
be
on
on
the
the
roof?
So,
I thought I heard 2 weeks.
Okay,
And
great.
then, tying everything and so forth, but the
Installation.
the louder part of putting stuff up there was a 2-week process, but I could be off base on that. Jen, did you hear?
Can I just chime in for
Yeah.
2 seconds? Sorry, I'm not. The other thing to just address is that it's not going to be, we've had construction in the buildings. We've had hallways down dismantled. This is going to be as minimally invasive as possible with noises on the roof versus people walking down the hall in hard hats and in high vis. We're taking an incremental step towards completion, and we'll be excited that when they're up and ready to go.
And maybe you're getting to this, but that's my next question, right, is how are we doing inside the building with the kitchen renovations and the walls that had to be replaced, and where is all that in process?
So that's in a good spot. So there is a lot of work going on. Some of that work, you kind of go slow at the beginning as you're trenching and cutting new holes for the plumbing and the electric. But that's all been now cut, and it's all been, sealed over. So you're starting to see more of the progress now. But we have weekly meetings, and they haven't extended the deadline on us at this point. And they haven't talked about anything that would extend necessarily the deadline at this point. So all the equipment's in-house. It's actually in the cafeteria. So it's just now a matter of moving it into the kitchen, plumbing it, connecting the plumbing and the electrical work of it, which should start happening pretty quickly.
So remind me what the expected completion date for the kitchen is?
August 21st is the last cleaning date, so I think the bulk of the work is done the week prior, and then they need that day just to make sure they,
So we're like 2 weeks out.
yeah.
Yep.
Could we do a board walkthrough like we did
Oh, yeah,
with the renovation
happy to do it.
project?
We could set one up, or I could, Jen's back there, they're fully operating, so swing by during the day and we'll get you a hard hat and take a wander through. I mean, all the work is really the stage, the cafeteria and the kitchen. And, you'll see like the ceiling grid is in, tiles are starting to go in.
I'm trying to
Starting to
remember, because we
button
did a few
everything
walkthroughs that we videotaped, like before the project began, during the project. Did we ever do this is what it looks like now?
I saw that.
In the
Emptied
cafeteria?
All of it.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Did we have a video and post that, though?
you go back to when we were promoting the project, we were showing the
everywhere.
kitchen, how cramped, I mean, for
No,
example.
I know, we did those.
Yeah.
I want, this is what it looks like now. This is what your tax dollars, these are the updates that your
Like
tax
mid-year?
dollars.
Like now that it's done.
Now that it's up and rolling and.
But it's
you're gonna
not,
be looking, the only thing that I would say with
Yeah.
that is you're looking at a lot of ceiling. Oh, look,
Right,
this is what we
right.
have now, you're not, everything is
But,
up above where
See
the
that
ceiling
white
is.
foamy
Yeah.
stuff?
but like the,
Yeah.
right,
It's
but
We-
like the mini splits and the kitchen renovations and all.
We definitely show some.
I think it would be nice to have an update that
A lot-
is
A lot
visual.
of the work
Yeah, we
is
can do that.
hiding under the ceiling.
Right. Feel how nice it is in here. That kind of thing.
Feels great.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the kitchen with the old cooler removed.
it's huge.
I know it's like a third bigger, it feels 10 times
So
bigger.
much
It's
bigger,
unbelievable
yeah.
to see the space in there.
Yeah.
And then, but all you're gonna see right now is the hood is mounted and it's ready for the equipment to go under it, but it's not there yet. So, I mean, we could do something certainly when it's done, as a recap to the whole project. I think it makes sense to do that.
And maybe that's a facilities committee thing
Yeah.
that we do.
So on time now, which again is gonna be great for the students, but also the staff, because it's, we've had students kind of come and some students have left, but we've had some staff who've been there the whole time, and that has been several years now. So, thank you to them again, and we'll hopefully be very minimal at this point.
Oil tank?
Oil tank is out.
Okay.
Fire was there when it happened. I
Not
haven't
a
heard any.
fire. The fire.
The
Not a
fire
fire.
department,
So we did not burn the
Just
sludge
wanted to
oil.
clarify.
yeah, we just lit it on fire.
So the fire department's purpose in being there is they photographed every inch of that. They made sure that there was no, because if you're gonna fill the hole back in, you wanna make sure there wasn't an oil leak that we're
Right.
bearing, right?
Yeah.
They verified that there was no issue, everything went very smoothly with that. The tank was then taken out, mounted on a truck and hauled away, so, and everything was done with all the permitting, so it worked out really well.
That's good to have that gone.
And just the land preservation and like reloaming and seeding where all their equipment was and the trails
Part of the
were.
question today was about where the container's gonna go.
Yeah.
And so now that the decision has been made, the container's back to its original location, which is, you come around the corner, like in parent pickup, and it's on the backside of the road there. Now we can loam and finish this. There was a question about whether we could move it across the road, but it's back over here. So now, loam, seed, I won't say there'll be grass by
No,
the start of
no.
school, but at least
Well, there's plenty of rain.
there is plenty of rain.
If you drive the building also, you'll notice all the connexes in the back are all gone, so
Cool.
it's wide open back there, which is nice to be back to.
Thank you.
Great. So speaking of kitchen and stuff, we got Lauren here. So Lauren, come on up. We have food service report. So again, this kind of happens twice a year, somewhere in the middle of the year, and then somewhere towards the end of the year. So I don't know if you want to bring up
How many,
the report as well.
do you want the Google sheet? Yep.
Yeah. So when we came kind of towards the middle of the year, we were talking about the differences between last year and this year. So last year, when everyone had free food, paid food, because it was one of the COVID type of acts that happened, we had a lot more kids getting lunch and breakfast. When we went back to having students pay for their food, New Hampshire did, then we had less kids. We still have more kids than before COVID. So what happened was, that we believe, is that more kids experienced the food, more kids said, hey, this is good food, and more kids kept on buying the food. So a lot of, I mean, it's food, so you taste it and you kind of go from there, and a lot of kids kept with it.
For our reimbursable lunches that, I've been tracking since I got hired, my first year running the program, we did about 87,200 lunches, just not breakfasts, just lunches. And we exceeded that by about 2,500 lunches this year with less kids in the district too. So it was counts wise, it was a pretty good year.
So pretty much every school, every town in the state, when it was free reimbursal, all lunches did well. And now it was back to more reality this year. So this year, when we were coming midway through, we thought that we were going to be in the negatives. Well, we knew we were going to be in the negatives, and we knew that we were going to most likely exceed the fund balance that came from last year for food service. Because again, whenever you get a food service fund balance, it doesn't go anywhere. You retain it, and then you spend it down as you need to. And so we thought we might then need a transfer of around $50,000. Luckily, our revenues were up a little bit and our expenses were definitely down a bit, which, a lot of that has to do with the work of Lauren and her crew, making sure that they were being creative on the menu, and if something was in the freezer or fridge, they were using that. So,
Especially at middle school. We cleared that completely out by the end of the year.
so with somewhat firm audited numbers. So the audit happened last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what they do is they come for 3 days and then they're right off to another school. And the reason why we don't see our completed audit for months is that they just hit the schools. 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, 3 days type of thing. And they're trying to get their schools the numbers that I can go back and fill out the DOE 25, as well as other DRA forms that we need to get in for also for tax rate settings. And then, so they're going to other schools to get them that information too. And then they start compiling the actual audit that we then see several months later. So these are somewhat firm numbers. I still have some emails going back and forth, but for food service, we're within like $500 type of thing, or $1,000. So we believe that as of now that the transfer from the general fund will be around $16,500. So better than predicted, but again, it's a transfer that needs to happen. So as we go into next year, not a lot is going to change necessarily with expenses. Some expenses will go down. Paper products have gone down about 30%.
Yeah, our paper bid's down 30% from last year, so that's huge right then and there.
All waiting for the food prices to go down at the supermarkets a little bit, so that hasn't gone down as much as we thought it would at this point. Hopefully it does go down a little bit more.
When I did, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when I did my commodities order in March, because you have to order it for the entire following school year, so I spent all of our allotted money in what's called brown box items, so beef, chicken, ham, turkey, cheese, all the expensive stuff, so we don't have to buy it. So I tried to offset that as much as possible.
Yeah, so as we look at, speaking of commodities, as we look at the budget for next year, it was $694,000, but pretty much we take away the commodities because no money ever changes hands. We're allotted a certain amount, we spend that amount, and we actually spend more than that because I asked you to spend more, right? And we always spent more because that's a better way to do it. So we really are expecting expenses of around $660,000, which coincide with where they were this year, where they ended up being this year as well. So we're not sure what's going to happen with food prices yet, but what we do have control over is the more of the revenue. What do we charge? And I think we've said this different times throughout the years. When we go to Dunkin' Donuts now, we're no longer coming out with a bill that we got 2 years ago. When we go to McDonald's, people aren't happy about it. So when we go to McDonald's, the same things happen.
Totally get it.
same thing's happening no matter where we go. So what used to be $10 is now $18, is now $19, is $14. So, you know, when we're charging meal prices of, where are meal prices? $3, $3.25, $3.50 for lunches, depending on the school that they're at, that really is a great deal. Because not only does, you know, is quantity age appropriate and decent, but the quality of it is good too. Because again, if you're serving lunch at school, the purpose should be that the meals are healthy and that the kids can learn after they eat the food. So as we go into next year, there are new reimbursement rates, which we get from the state and the federal government, which has to do with free, reduced, as well as students who pay meals. So when a student is fully paid meal, we still get a reimbursement from the federal government. Those rates have actually gone down. So we're gonna experience less of a revenue that way. So there are.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt again. I'm just filling in with information as it comes along. With the transfer back from universal free meals to paid meals, the USDA inflated the prices of reimbursement to kind of ease that transition back. And it was brought to my attention back in like April by one of the people in the New Hampshire buying group that they were going to be lower rates. So typically we would have had this conversation by now, but I wanted to see what the rates were going to be before we went ahead. Okay.
Great. So this is based off the counts from this year. So if everything stayed the same this year and we adjusted the cost of the meals, this is what we'd expect the revenue to be. If you scroll up a little bit. So.
How far
up,
down?
No, up.
Up?
Yeah, there we go. So in yellow, all the way to the left, you can see what happened this year for the counts. And then if we kept everything the same, what we'd expect our revenue to be, which is up in yellow. And then as you start scrolling to the right, you can see if we start adjusting the prices for lunch and breakfast, what our revenue would be. So pretty much you're seeing that we're going up by 25 cents. And when we go up by 25 cents, we're bringing in roughly another $20,000 of revenue. So if we expect to have expenses of around $660,000 and food service is supposed to kind of be self-funding, which it is not in every district. There are several districts that within their general fund budget, when they're going through budgeting, they budget $50,000, $75,000 that they're going to transfer over to food service. And I think it has to do with kind of the size of the school. Litchfield is a smaller type school, but you're employing some of the same people. So the costs are shared by less people. So a decision that we have to make at some point is, are we going to adjust the prices? And if so, by how much?
And if I look at the
Didn't we just do
proposed, yeah, we did, and that's what's represented, I think, in column
Okay.
E,
Yep.
right? And I think the proposal here is if we were to raise it to what's in column I, we would still be short $120,000,
That is correct. Yep.
right? And I guess if I look at, correct me if I'm wrong, I look at the proposed rates in column I and I compare it to the tab of other districts, and it's the highest out of all other districts, just about.
Yep.
That's also.
Amherst, and I base it just on like the high school, and on the other districts tab, I did pull the highest and the lowest of each grade level. Amherst has the highest high school level priced meal at $3.85, and we're pretty much right in the median right about now, kind of in that happy spot there.
Now, but if we raise it again,
Would it be the same for all three schools?
I think it should be. And my reasoning for that is at their very core, the meals are pretty much the exact same at all three levels. With the exception of pasta, the portion size for pasta graduates, but everything else is a half a cup of fruit or veg, two meat, two green. It's a whole qualifying crediting thing. But at their very core, they are all the same meal.
Okay.
And you have the highest participation rate at the elementary school with the lowest price. You know, there's opportunity for revenue there as well.
Lauren, how does portion size vary?
It is pretty much all the same. The only difference, and really, is the high school kids can take up to a cup and still have it qualify. Minimum, but your very minimum standard, it's the same across the board. And pasta is the only thing that graduates, where 4 ounces of pasta for an elementary school kid, up to 8 ounces of pasta for a high school kid. Exactly. Pasta's cheap. Everything else is pretty much standard across the board, though, oddly enough, at its minimum.
This is Heidi. Do we know if the comparison to other school districts, are those their last year numbers, or are those their expected 24 numbers?
So some of the districts did not raise prices. So what I have gathered for information is what is currently being shown on schools' websites. And no, like I said, most school districts do make this decision back in like March, April time. So I think, can you pull that, just the other district sheet up just quickly, please? I think Pelham is the same, is 22, 23 pricing, and everyone else has gone up. And I have our current pricing at the bottom.
When did we raise the prices last?
April.
Yeah,
I think the predicament here is, again, like now we're already projecting a shortfall, if we were to keep it the same, of $140,000 in food service.
That's if we still consider food service self-funded, right? So
Well, we don't have a
essentially-
choice for next year's budget. We have to. We don't have money budgeted for food service.
Right, I know. But if in the future we consider it not self-funded and we
Correct.
budget it, that the district, the general fund, the difference would come out of the general fund. That's just a change in philosophies.
Yes. So allow me to ask another question, right? So I understood through your initial presentation that we transferred approximately $16,500. Right, that's the final end of this current year's FY23 number that had to be covered by general fund, correct?
Yep.
We encumbered as a board $50,000 for food service transfer. So what are we doing with the additional $33,000 that was encumbered by the board and not spent to cover the balance of food service for FY23?
Goes back to reduced taxes.
It just goes automatically back to close
Yep.
up the numbers.
Yep.
Okay. So that number that we were planning now increased by that amount, by the $33,000.
There were some things that increased and some things that decreased. Yep. So,
When will we see those final numbers?
next board meeting. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think it's tough to be the most expensive school lunches around,
Yes.
given our demographic here in Litchfield. But I also understand the need to make money.
It is, it's a hard line to walk. I don't want to be the most expensive around.
Yeah.
But I do think if, at very bare minimum, it should at least all be at least all 350, at very bare minimum. But that's for you guys to decide, and I will just roll with whatever you.
it's at $17.50 a week.
So are you I'm looking, trying to find them back.
What was the lunch at GMS before we raised it in April?
$250.
So now you're talking from April to this current year, $1 increase.
That's a lot.
And LMS was
Before the increase,
Yeah.
$2.75.
$2.75.
Everyone went up 50 cents.
And now you're proposing an additional 25. Got it.
Doug, can I just ask a probing question? The board already authorized the 50,000, so it's been encumbered in. You used 16 of it. Could they dedicate the remainder toward this year's scenario? Or does it automatically?
That's where I was kind of going with it,
Yeah.
but I also
That's-
understand the need to close the books.
Yeah, but if it's encumbered and held over, could it be used toward this? I don't know the answer.
I don't know. I'd have to double check on that. I can double check on that. I mean, what happened with, we have the unaudited numbers and even between when we unaudited, before the auditors came, some things went up, some things went down. But we're still around that 440,000 that at the end of the day, we thought would go to reduce taxes. And we're still at that 440,000. So if we took anything else out, we'd be lowering from that. That's just
That's why I kind of want to see where the numbers landed versus what we talked about in encumbered.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking about dipping into more of that. I was thinking about the 50,000 toward food service.
Yep.
Utilizing the full 50, partly to close last year and partly to close the gap that we're looking at, and that would reduce the need to raise prices by somewhat. Because I think you're looking at a projection of, if I'm reading it correctly, you're projecting about 46,000 needed, and so
Where are you getting?
That was FY
Right,
'23.
46,000,
That's
so.
No, I'm sorry, where's the
So if
projected?
you go the next
He's projecting that
I'm sorry, that's FY '23, yep.
40,000.
So
Of
what
course.
up at the
Yeah.
top is the expense of around
It's not good.
660,000, and then in the yellow, you'll see how much revenue.
Got it.
So,
Okay, well, 36 would be
Something.
something,
Yeah,
but
would
nowhere
help.
near what I was thinking, sorry.
I don't know that I am willing to make a decision on this tonight. I think what I'd like to do is keep a pulse on it very closely over the next couple of months.
Agreed.
Right? And let's reevaluate as we get into the school year and see how we're trending for the first couple of months and what we might need to do. I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna have, it's being projected that we're gonna have a big deficit, and we're gonna need to figure out how to cover that.
do we want to move all prices up to the same point, or just kind of keep everything
I feel
where
a
it
little
is?
more comfortable doing that, just bumping the lunches
Mhm.
to be 350 at each school.
And I think where we just did that,
I don't wanna
Yeah.
do it
I don't wanna
again.
do it again.
I know, yeah, you did make the point.
I think
that
if we,
it's
if we
April.
set the prices tonight, we don't change them for the year though, because the state does not like that.
Right.
So, and there's a very good chance we're getting audited this year, and I don't want to have
Yeah.
that, so.
Yeah.
I think,
That's why I think-
regardless of what we decide, we'll work with it, but
I think it's easier to do it at the beginning of the school year than to change it midway.
It
Well, we
is.
did it in April.
I know,
Right, we did it towards the end of the school
Yeah.
year last year.
right,
We had to.
yep.
Heidi, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I was on the spreadsheet, so then I gotta go back to the meet to unmute myself. I'm struggling with it, honestly. I mean, I think obviously we need to consider for next year,
Right.
but not being budget neutral and budgeting for a deficit because it seems to happen every year. I understand food prices are up all over, so I definitely think our families understand when there's an increase, but we just increased it literally, 4 months ago. I'm leaning towards either column F or column I, which is either keeping it the same or making everything the 350 at this point. I agree with you though, Andrew. I think we need to keep a closer eye on this and might need more of some monthly counts. I also am hoping food prices are going to dip a little bit because we budgeted when they were really high. And the hope is that as things start to slowly come down, we might see some relief, but that's all a hope. We have no idea. So I would go with either keeping it the same or I could be talked into the making it consistent with 350 for all lunches.
Mr. Plansky?
I'm of the mind that given we just did it towards the end of last year, that
I know.
we should leave it the way it is. And I don't, I don't know who's confident that food prices are gonna go down.
Hopeful.
Hopeful,
Hopefully.
right? Wishful
That's hopeful,
thinking.
exactly.
Optimistic.
All right, well, I think the will of the board, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to keep it as is for now in column 8, and let's keep a very close eye on it. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong.
I agree.
No, I agree.
It's okay.
In
me.
hindsight, good.
Yep, I agree.
Okay,
Cool.
thanks for the update.
You
Yeah, no
go
worries.
to the goals.
Lauren?
So while Lauren's here, though, actually, the goal sheet, and Lauren, I'll pull your beautiful document up. Walk us through the goals of
Sure.
dining services.
Pretty straightforward, standard years. But a lot of our focus obviously is going to be at LMS with the new kitchen, which would increase the amount of homemade items at not only their school, but all schools. I'm also looking to reinvigorate and revamp our breakfast service. Two of our three schools are absolutely killing breakfast, and it's great. But I'm very hopeful that with the new schedule up at Campbell, that our meal counts will increase there as well.
Is that the school that isn't doing as well as?
Yeah, I mean, high schoolers, they roll out of bed and go to do things. But with a little bit later breakfast, when we had it during COVID, it was very, very successful. So we're hoping to kind of have that happen again. And middle school, obviously, they were cooking for all those kids with just a steamer and an oven. So anything is amazing. Our vending machine did come in at the high school, and we are in works of getting that up and running. So very excited about that. And we revamped our online ordering for staff. So last year we kind of had it was me delivering sandwiches twice a week to the other schools, and now all schools are going to have that availability for like a wrap bar or something, even on a smaller capacity, like not as big as the high school, but staff can order sandwiches, chips, drinks, and stuff. So we are looking to increase our staff participation as well. And we are kind of doing we'll call it a rebrand, which was the very first bubble up top. I skipped past it on accident, but we're doing a bit of a rebrand. So looking more at like what people would see out in like when they go out. So instead of a reimbursable meal, we're calling it a value meal. And it will explain, like, it's inclusive of the fruit and the vegetable, which is what the prices we just decided on. And then everything else would be categorized under a non-value, and it would be a different price, but it would be technically a la carte. So, and really, the kids are 90% buying the regular value meal anyway, so it's not something that I'm overly concerned about getting. It's just to kind of ease that. People don't necessarily understand what a reimbursable meal is versus a non-reimbursable meal, and it's kind of a mouthful to explain it all. So I'm kind of hoping this kind of changes things around a little bit, and
I think they get it more. They would
yeah,
understand
like you
the
see it at
concept
like
McDonald's.
at fast food and stuff like that. You're like, oh, that's the value meal, includes this and that. So
yeah,
and it's going to be all explained up on our website, all on Facebook, everything like that. So now that we have the prices, I was just waiting on that to start a lot of the prep work for the school year. So
Then if you want to kind of end with a plug for the two positions.
oh my gosh,
People
we
that
are
listening.
hi everyone, we're hiring. No, we do have two positions available, both 4-hour positions, one at Griffin and one at the middle school. Previous food service experience is not required. We will train you. We have lots of great people that we work with, and yeah, so if anyone is interested in coming to work for us, reach out to me, please. And that's all I really have. Yeah, Mr. Mitchell serves. You got a pretty sweet certificate though last year.
Yeah.
great.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
The update.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thanks, Lauren.
Preliminary overview of state adequacy aid.
So the state has increased how much they're paying for students, as you know, as far as it goes for every student, special ed student, ELL student, as well as students who might qualify for free and reduced. So the projection has, bumped up the funding. We expect it to be somewhere around maybe a positive 200,000 that we'd be getting more in revenue. They said, though, that the firm numbers won't be in until about August 21st.
great.
So I'll give you some more information after the August 21st. Time comes and goes, but it should be positive. It's positive for Litchfield. It's pretty much going to be positive for every school district. So if you hear about some school districts getting a lot more, that tends to be the school districts that have higher percentage of free and reduced students. So they are being helped out more by the state.
Okay.
Great.
Right, so that's where I'm at. You have the list of transfers also from the last one.
you.
That's listed, nothing over 5,000 though.
Okay. You all set?
All set.
Great. The public minutes from the July 12th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the public minutes from July 12th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Heidi?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
I abstain because I wasn't there. Andrew? 410.
401.
401. Thank you. And we're old business kindergarten. Tell us about kindergarten
I should
enrollment.
say perennial business, because it's
Yeah, it's
kindergarten every
always-
summer. So I'm going to invite Dan up to the table to join us. But you can see the statement that's written out for the board. We had this discussion at the last meeting. The current kindergarten enrollment is now 81. The trigger number is 76, so we're well over that trigger number.
Yeah.
And so we feel that adding a fifth kindergarten teacher makes sense. Our recommendation is to authorize us to make that higher, but to kind of take a wait-and-see approach on whether we need to dip into the reserve fund as the budget year unfolds. So we don't think we need a vote tonight to utilize the funding that is set aside for that purpose. You know, we like to monitor, we still have unfilled para positions, et cetera. So, you know, can we absorb that within the budget would be our suggestion that we monitor and see how we go. But questions for Dan about the numbers or where it sits?
Nope, I think it's, I know we talked about this, I know I was of the opinion, let's wait it out for a few weeks and see where we land. This is only increased, and it's time to make that decision. So I will make a motion to approve the fifth kindergarten teacher for the current school year.
I second. Oh, we both second.
And that's per policy that we have in place.
By the way, we got two of those increase like 7 hours after the last meeting.
That's how
Well,
it
and
goes.
Always
he,
do.
he actually said to me, he thinks there's one more in the tank here. So
Yeah,
we
that's
might be
the
at-
official number, we believe.
But we think we're at 82, so it's only going
It's a
up.
good problem to have, right?
Yeah,
It's a great problem to have.
Further discussion?
Assistant too.
Yeah.
So probably the motion to approve the program para also.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll do that next.
Oh, yeah, we'll just do it separately, is that
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
We have a motion. Heidi?
Yes,
Peter?
Aye.
Tina?
Yes.
Me, yes.
Yes. I will also make a motion to approve the kindergarten para for the current school year.
I second. Further discussion? All those in favor, Heidi?
aye,
Peter?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Me, aye. And-
Aye.
Aye, 500.
It's the quickest update ever.
This is the best time I've had at this table ever.
Perfect, thank you.
Great, now we're moving on to our GMS land purchase.
So, just an update, and this is really important for everyone remotely watching and those in the audience to listen to. The board has been made aware of a request from the seller of the land to expedite closing on that land. The warrant article, and I have it in front of me, so give me. The warrant article that was approved in March of this year was written in a way that allowed the school district to ask for the land and secure and appropriate the money for the land, which we have in our accounts. We have not spent that money for the land. And we have the right, per the warrant article, to present to the voters in March of next year the ability to vote on a new school for that land. And if that fails, then the purchase and sale of the land ultimately becomes null and void. The seller of the land has asked that the board expedite the payment of the land, of the money that we have in our accounts to pay her for that land. But allow me to read the article so it's clear for everybody. Article 2 of March of 2023. Shall the Litchfield School District raise and appropriate the sum of $497,000 for the purchase of approximately 35 acres of land with no buildings or improvements thereon, shown as tax map 15, lot number 8, on Litchfield tax maps. The parcel is also known as BL 114 of Albuquerque Avenue, Litchfield, New Hampshire, nearly across the street from the fire station. And further, approve the seller's condition of the sale, which is that the district will name the school to be constructed thereon the Robin Riley Elementary School. This warrant article will be a special non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32-7, Section 8, and will, 6, and will not lapse until the closing on the property takes place once the construction of the new school is funded and approved by voters or by June 30th, 2029, whichever is sooner. If the closing does not occur, the appropriation will lapse and all funds raised will be returned to the taxpayers. So with that, and that's the article that the voters fully supported, it was voted with a yes vote of 705 and a no vote of 641. So it did pass the March election. We have the money in our accounts. And it's in hold until, at this point, until we go to March of next year. With the request of the seller, the board is considering a special election to be held somewhere in the mid to late October timeline to authorize the use of the funds to pay the seller the money for the land. That is a terms and conditions as well as an appropriation change, right?
Correct.
For what was voter approved. The board fully recognizes that, and we're trying to obviously be transparent to the taxpayers, be fully transparent to all of those that are very, very closely tracking the school and the land purchase, and we believe it's in the best interest at this point to move forward with a special election to get voter approval to pay the seller for the land. I'll turn it over to the board for thoughts or comments.
So basically, what I got from our discussion with legal counsel is that there are basically two options. One option is to hold to the current purchase and sales agreement that we have, that, you know, the payment is made once
School is
the
approved.
school is approved by taxpayers, which would be in March. Or we could go forward with a special election to change the terms of the payment to be able to pay the seller in a timely manner, which they've requested. So, you know, I think this is this was a great win for the district when the voters approved the purchase of this land. And I think it's critical that we keep moving forward on this project. The kind of keeping the balance between what the voters approved in March and what's in front of us now. I think what my goal is to keep the ball rolling on this project, but also to work with Mrs. Riley and make sure that she's comfortable with what's happening, and frankly, we wouldn't be doing this without her agreeing to that purchase and sales. And I think if we can make accommodations for her and the voters support us in that, I think we can all, end up in a good spot.
I agree 100%. I believe that land, there's no better piece of land in this town.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on a side road, it's not on a corner, it's right on Albuquerque. We can make it work further back, there won't be traffic jams, we won't be sitting on the corner of the road. I do not want to lose this piece of land. And to build a school in Robin's memory just makes it better, and if she would like her money now, which we have, I would really like it to pay her.
In my
Yeah.
view, and just additional comments, right, the board fully understands the town's position about the school going for special elections.
Right.
We don't take this lightly.
No.
We are really trying to do what's in the best interest of the taxpayers as well as the school district for our kiddos. We're trying to find a happy medium to meet the seller's wishes as well as meet our goals and objectives for ultimately going and putting forth a new school to the voters in March of next year.
So sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna clarify that the special meeting we'd go through all the steps. We'd post draft a warrant article, post it, go through it, have a deliberative session, and then have a vote, mid to late October would be the proposed schedule.
So for me, this came to the board today, which was a little bit surprising, and I personally would have liked a little bit more time to review all the documents and have a longer time to think. For me, the vote passed very narrowly by, about 60 votes or something in the town. I think that, for me, it was not an overwhelming approval. It was approved. I'm glad it was approved. I agree with Liz that this is the spot to have the school. However, I think to go back to the voters again with another special election is going to be painful. It's going to cause issues within the town. And I appreciate Mrs. Riley, wanting to get her money. I truly do. But on this, I'm a no to putting this forward on the ballot.
And Heidi, we definitely want to hear from you. I just want to reemphasize one of the points made, all right? We already have the money for this. We're not asking voters to appropriate new additional funds for the land. This is funds that we already have, and we're just trying to expedite the closing on the land per the seller's request to the school district. Heidi?
Yeah, that was a key point, Andrew. I think that's key. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, so with that, that's the really important update on the land purchase the board wanted to share with the public for full transparency this evening. With that, I will make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to authorize council to proceed with a special meeting on the land, and also to authorize school administration to plan a special meeting in accordance to legal requirements. And again, that special meeting will be mid to late October.
Just one other thing, there will be a deliberative session, correct?
Yes.
That's correct. There would be a deliberative session in advance as well, per
Would be
For requirements.
beginning of September-ish.
Yeah, so what we learned from council is it's a deliberative session followed the correct number of days later with a paper ballot. We would be walking into the gym at Campbell and voting on a paper ballot. We have to do all the proper postings with the supervisors of the checklist and so forth to make sure that it's an official legal election. So all those steps are what this vote is authorizing us to put into place.
Is my motion seconded?
I second.
You
I
did.
did.
I
Heidi
also
did.
Somebody
We
did.
all seconded. We have a motion on the board. Further discussion? Everyone had a chance to say their.
The thing I would say is that we asked the voters for this with the 2-year window, and now we're sort of walking that back.
I get that, and as mentioned, I fully appreciate the fact that I don't want a special election either, especially after everything that happened last year with the special elections and in years past. I know it has a sour taste in the eyes of the voters. I get it, right? This is a specific request from the seller. We already have the money. This is a little bit different than in years past, and it's really just a legal terms and conditions type of change in my mind.
Right,
To
it's not
expedite the
asking for
payment
more
of the
money.
money we already have for the land.
Okay, we have a first and second. Heidi,
Aye.
Peter,
No.
Tina,
Aye.
Liz, aye. Peter, Andrew. sorry. 4-1-0. Is that it?
We have our direction now. We'll take action tomorrow. I'll give Gordon a call and we'll put a timeline out, and it'll be very similar to what we discussed. Obviously, there could be a slight adjustment to it depending on how the time comes together, but thank you for that.
Just, I'll watch the clock and let you know.
Okay,
when we're there.
new business, NHSBA Delegate Assembly.
So the notice came out from the School Board Association that the delegate assembly is being held on Saturday, October 14th, at the Grapponi Center in Concord. The time schedule is about 10:30 to 2, so we don't need to take action today on the delegate assembly resolutions. If somebody's thinking about a resolution that they'd like to propose, like the Litchfield School Board had one a couple of years ago that we brought forward, now would be the time to begin thinking about that.
It says the deadline is Friday, July 28th.
In that notice?
Yeah.
Never mind then, it's too late.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
did
come out?
we talk about
I've been
this?
getting these emails for a
Yeah.
while.
Okay,
You were on vacation.
I guess I was. So, all right,
We've been
well,
getting a lot of those
Yeah.
emails.
more to come on the resolutions that are finally presented. However, we do need to appoint somebody to be the delegate, and somebody needs to commit, and again, this doesn't have to be tonight, but we should know who is planning to go on October 14th.
Sounds good. I'll look at my calendar.
So I'll keep it on as old business next meeting.
Old business, perfect. School handbooks. I would like to invite Mr. Hess up and his sidekick, Mr. G. Our new vice
I think
principal.
you mean our new assistant vice
Yes.
principal. Welcome.
His twin.
So every year, the board gets presented with school handbooks. Our hope is to get those approved as soon as possible. The good news is that we no longer have to send these off to a printer and make multiple hundreds of copies of these. This is an online document. What you're presented tonight and received on Friday is the draft handbook. That's one link. And then each school has a list of proposed changes. So you can
Very
read that
helpful.
side by side. And so it's really the pleasure of the board about whether you approve those tonight or you want to do that at the next meeting. But this would be a great time to take questions or concerns about what is there and give us an opportunity to respond to those.
I just first want to thank the admin team at the high school, Dana Giampaolo, our new assistant principal, Val Nelson, our director of counseling, and Josh Knight, our athletic director. We all worked on this together. July is a weird time to work on a student handbook as we wrap up a year and try to start a new year. So we busted it out. A lot of formatting stuff, a couple little things, that I think will have some positive changes at the high school. So I'll be happy to go about this any way you guys want, if we just want to address questions you may have.
Did everybody have a chance to preview them? Anyone have any questions, tabs? I had lots of questions.
Great.
One of my first questions was, to receive the GPA addition, which is a 1, to their GPA, a 1.0, for an AP class, the student must complete the AP exam? That's new this year.
Correct.
Okay.
Liz, where are you?
Page
on
13,
Are you on the proposed changes
Yeah,
or
on the
the
changes
actual
of the-
handbook?
proposed changes.
So let me pull it up on the screen for us.
Just, I know it hasn't been a requirement in past.
Yeah,
in the past. I was just.
I think
interested in that.
we're seeing an increase in the number of students who take the class but don't take the exam.
Agreed.
And so we thought that this would be a way to help balance that a little bit more. And
Will
just
it matter what they get on the exam?
It doesn't. And again, it says a lot if you took a AP exam and don't submit your scores for certain colleges and that sort of thing. We just thought this would add a little bit more to the idea of giving your full attention to an AP class throughout the whole year. I mean, the exam itself and going through that process is such a big part of the class in and of itself. So we wanted to just add this.
Okay. And I really like the add in sophomore project completion is required to obtain a student parking pass. So most of the kids, I think my son was a sophomore when he got his license. And that the sophomore project is always hanging over their head and it's like a carrot.
Well, and again, this comes from, some interpretation of the policies from last year. I was going off of, what I was told was 20 years of past practice. We see a lot of struggle with sophomores completing it. So we thought this was hey, you finish this, you can do it. A junior has to have it done to get a parking pass that following year as well. So I tried to clean up the language. Again, it's one of those things that we're proposing.
Failure to complete paperwork equals no HO. What does that mean?
Honors option.
Honors option.
I think it was referenced right before that. and
Okay.
So,
Liz, I think Heidi wants
Oh,
to talk about
is that her
sophomore
dinging?
project, I'm guessing.
Is that you
Yeah.
dinging?
I didn't ding, but I just wanted to jump in on the sophomore project. So I can speak to why this was an issue last year. Specifically, the language under the sophomore project, if you scroll down, I think it's more towards the bottom, specifically said that sophomores were allowed to have parking spaces if space allowed. They did not. There was no language that required the completion of the sophomore project. And there are students who have earlier birthdays. There was room in the parking lot. Sophomore project, in my view, is meant to be completed throughout the year. That is the goal during their sophomore year. I don't think students should be prevented from getting parking passes because they haven't completed their sophomore project yet when it isn't even due. So I firmly disagree with that change because I think students should be able to park on campus.
Yeah, I get it. You know, we look at that as, you know, more of a privilege for the juniors and seniors and those sophomores that become of age. The due date is it has to be done by the end of it's like a rolling due date. The sooner they can get it in, the better. We encourage them to get it done sooner. Again, it's something we're proposing. If the board doesn't agree with it, we just wanted to clear that up because that line came right after juniors and seniors need to complete sophomore project. So that was the language that had been used for years to say.
But I can see the point with, you know, students with birthdays earlier in the year. You know, it's not that they're not working on it, it's just that
As long as there's space in the parking
Yeah, I
lot, I
think
would
it's a great
imagine
point.
seniors and juniors get preference.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just from the other side, then comes May 1st. I've got 14 sophomores that park that didn't do the project. I'm now going through and pulling parking passes. It's just
I absolutely
another
agree with
step.
that.
I
You
would
should
agree
pull
with
their
that, too.
parking passes if they haven't completed it on time. I think, to me, it's more punishing students who haven't had an opportunity to fail yet and not get it done, rather than, I don't see it so much as dangling a carrot. I think it is, if you want to set benchmarks, so you have to have, and I think the sophomore project advisor does have benchmarks in there. You have to have your idea pitched by this day. You have to have your presentation by this day, this many hours. You want to put rolling hours in there? I would be absolutely fine with that. I think the idea that it has to be completed and you've got someone with an October birthday, I think that's not fair. They're supposed to have the whole year to do their project, and if their project is something that is seasonal, so for example, we've had people do photo shoots in the winter, we've had all sorts of different things. They can't complete their project if that's what they've chosen to do. And so I think it punishes rather than entices, and so I would like to see that language changed with the caveat that if for whatever reason the sophomore advisor feels like they're not meeting their deadline and they have nothing done by May 1st, I absolutely think you have the right to pull the parking pass.
No, and the last thing I'll say is that I don't want to, I think the word punish is harsh. We're not punishing anyone. Parking is a privilege
Exactly.
at school. So I think the word punish, I'm not punishing anyone. We were going off of past practice. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. We're trying to clean some things up.
I understand. As a parent, I view it as a punishment. I view it as something that the student is 16, they have a driver's license, and if their parents are so inclined, have a car for them. They have sports, they have after-school activities, they have jobs, just like the juniors and seniors. And if space permits, juniors and seniors should have first dibs, for sure. But if there's space, they should be able to park there. And if they are not doing their work, then I think it can be taken away. That's my opinion.
Next question.
do we, I'm just kind of piggybacking off of that, do we have any requirements as far as, maintaining, I don't know, like, for the parking pass?
Yes, the
Do
parking
we have
pass, that privilege can be
standards?
revoked for academic reasons. It can be revoked for any violations of behavior
Okay.
policies. It can be revoked at any time.
Okay.
On your cover letter within the handbook itself, I noticed a reference to the former assistant vice principal.
Oh, that might have just been a typo for me.
Just as a heads up.
You cheating on me?
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a whole other
We'll
policy.
talk about that tomorrow.
Trying.
Change that on that.
I'm glad we won't be using artificial intelligence anywhere.
Yeah, within the
Yeah.
second, the.
I did have a
It's
question.
updated now.
It's in there as a suggestion. It's crossed
Okay.
off right now.
Okay.
So all the
I don't
changes
see it
within the
crossed off.
handbook
Interesting.
themselves is
So-
in as a suggestion.
So unfortunately, I think it's been shared with the board as a view only.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to see all those,
changes
everything that's
haven't
on the
been made.
change page is reflected here. So,
Yeah, we don't see that.
yeah.
Okay,
So really working off that change document is important.
last comment, and you know what's coming. The 5 days, that was the one complaint my son said, you have a due date, and the kid, I hand mine in on time, and another student hands it in 5 days late and gets the same grade, was one of the things that really grated on him as a
Yeah, so everything would,
one of my sons.
everything
The
would
other one
fall
didn't
under,
care.
everything would fall under the new late work procedure,
Okay.
which is, on a formative or a summative, in order to get an extension, a student has to meet with the teacher, show the work that has been completed, explain why it won't be done by the due date, and the teacher then has the discretion to grant an extension or not.
That's fair.
That's for a
That's
formative or a summative. That's very similar to the college level. That's very similar. You know, Dr. Jetty comes to me, says, hey, and I'm like, oh, I've got X, Y, and Z. Can I have a few more days? I think that fits nicely. And it gives our teachers, opportunity to use their discretion.
exactly.
And it's never the, well, I just didn't do it yet. You're not getting an extension then type deal. So I thought that kind of mirrored both ways of making it.
It's kind of a half step.
I liked
Yeah,
it. I thought
that's
it was
okay.
very fair. And it encourages students to advocate for themselves.
Exactly.
And after 5 days, if not completed, then the teacher has the right to not accept. That doesn't mean they won't accept.
Correct.
They have the right to
They can
not accept.
Correct. And again, you know, it's the fifth day. You know, Susie's dog had to be put to sleep that night, and so she's not in school the next day. You know, things come up. I want to be fair to kids, but we have expectations, and you have to go that extra step and ask ahead of time and plan that you're not going to get it done.
Inappropriate touching of person and/or that's considered aggressive.
We,
Which page are you on now?
Oh, that's page, it's in a different font, so is that from yours? So they look the same, yeah, well, I could see that in middle
We
school.
met together with Dana, myself, and Maura to make sure that that table aligned across
That's
the board.
perfect.
And we were looking at, is there anything that came up that was missing? For example, hypothetically speaking, in middle school, if someone were to be pantsed,
this is hypothetical.
Yeah,
hypothetical, of course,
Never would happen in
No.
our
I
schools.
would be able to be aggressive close touching.
okay.
It's hard, you can't list everything that a kid is
No.
going to do, but when something has occurred, perhaps hypothetically, on more than one occasion, we want to make sure it's hypothetically addressed in that.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments?
No, I
Peter,
thought this-
Heidi?
Did Heidi want to make a motion?
I did not have any other questions. I do think that the sophomore project references that's in multiple spots should be removed. But that's I don't know if I need to motion that or what, but
Would you like to make a motion?
yes. Okay, I will make a motion to remove, and I don't have it in front of me because I'm going back and forth. The Campbell High School, the recommended changes with respect to the parking procedure, which I believe was number 11. Nope, number.
Yep, 11.
You have it? Is it 11?
Yes.
And I think there was another reference earlier up when it talked about the software project as well. There seem to be 2 references to it.
Correct.
So I would make a motion to remove the requirement for the sophomore project.
For it to be finished in order to obtain a parking pass.
Correct, to have it be completed. I absolutely agree it should be worked on, but I do not believe it should be required to be completed in order to obtain a parking pass. So that is my motion, however it is appropriately worded.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, sorry.
You can have it if you want.
Sure.
Peter,
Any
second.
further discussion?
Nope, thanks for bringing that up, Heidi.
All right, Heidi,
I'm an aye on the motion.
Peter,
Aye.
Tina.
Aye.
Aye. Andrew, oh,
Aye.
Liz, nay. No,
No?
No.
Aye.
aye. So it is 4-1-0. I think it should be done to get a parking pass. Okay, that's just me. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Hess?
Just,
Well, you know what, can I make another proposal that it has to be somewhat done? You can't just have one page done, or I am going to coach soccer. Here's your parking pass.
I think that that's something we could tackle later. We're going to sit down with the sophomore project and the senior project advisors this year and
That's a lit, like,
and make and revamp of the process and the projects in general. So I think that if we want to work in some sort of
like if you have deadlines
Yeah,
that
more
they
than-
have to adhere to, that
more
they're
than
caught
happy
up to that deadline.
to have that
Yeah.
conversation, or bang my head up against the wall every year. We'll do that too.
No, I
So
agree with them having to meet benchmarks. I think that's a good practice.
I just-
I just don't want it to have to be completed. In
I
October.
agree 100%. There's a lot of people involved. Each step of the way, checking everything.
Right.
This was a nice, clean, easy way. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll go ahead and we'll go from there. So
I sense comments in our future.
I appreciate that, and if you want any parent input or board input on what that should look like, I'm more than happy to sit in on any meeting you have on it, Jake. I just wanted to offer.
nothing I enjoy more, Heidi, than talking with you.
Come into your
Sarcasm.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything for Mr. Hess and Mr. G?
No, the only
Oh,
question
I
would
don't
be
know
if
if I can say
and again, it's the will of the board, are you prepared to approve the handbook
I
as
d-
amended, or do you want to take 2 more weeks?
I do want to point out one thing that didn't come up, but it's probably going to come up this year. So on the second to
Please
last
do.
page of the change proposal, page 54, it's in regards to our co-curricular and athletics. We added the line, a student elected to a leadership or captain position for an activity or team forfeits that position for the duration of the season. Any student in violation of this code of co-curricular conduct also forfeits eligibility for any team postseason awards. So we are saying if you are a captain of a sports team or an elected leader to a club or group at school, and you violate our co-curricular and athletic code of ethics, you revoke your leadership position and you forfeit the eligibility for postseason awards. We heard over and over again from parents that we do not hold our school leaders accountable for their actions, so we are trying to hold our school leaders accountable.
Thank you.
I wholeheartedly support this, so I think this is a great thing.
I just wanted to make sure that didn't slip through anybody, and then all of a sudden,
So,
Jake, how could you do that?
the
So-
athletic,
We have the wave going on.
Getting
in
a
the
wave
background,
behind you.
So clearly supported.
Mic drop.
yeah.
That wasn't for that.
Thanks, Vale Nelson.
Can I ask you a question before you, I know they had talked about updating some of the athletic, what's the word I'm looking for? Athletic requirements and eligibility. Did they add vaping? I know smoking was one of them, like vaping and stuff like that. The last time.
I don't know if they changed the actual language, but it's, tobacco use or drug use.
Yeah, but, the athletic one is separate.
But it would still fall under the
Smoking, yeah, there were a few things that were it hadn't been updated in a long time, and I know they had talked about updating it. Awesome. Great.
Thanks.
Whoa. First wave ever.
It's true.
All right, Jen, beat that.
Mine is.
Liz, just to
No.
clarify, so
Yes.
absent a vote, this is coming back to the next meeting. That's what you would like
Oh.
to do?
I
Well,
was going
wait a
to make a
second.
motion to approve that.
No, I'll make a motion to approve
I'll second.
Yes,
as amended.
perfect, thank you.
Just want to make sure I'm tracking it right.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
You're right, the motion was on the amendment, not that.
yes. All those in favor, Heidi?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
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 Aye. 500, approval of the Campbell High School student handbook.
Approved as amended. Thank you much. Jen's turn with the middle school.
So ours is shorter and sweeter. I think just because I'm going to smile and say we did a lot of work on it last year. We really peeled apart a great deal of it. We have work that is in our goals, which are coming later in regards to fixing mission, vision, and goals. So I don't feel like that was something we could take out or change, but you'll see an overarching theme of the responsive classroom insertion that comes up through the handbook in regards to melding that with our PBIS. We had 30 staff trained for 3.5 days this year, so that, and you're going to hear the continuation of do your best at LMS, but you're also adding a phrase of kindness matters, because for middle school that's our biggest weakness. It's kids are not kind to each other. Kids are not kind to adults. Kids are not
That's
kind
middle
to
school.
kind kindness matters. So that's going to be our overarching theme. We're going to be looking to catch kindness in action throughout our school year and day amongst all stakeholders. And so that's in the principal's letter as well as in the faculty letter. We updated our personnel this year, so we had some changes there. We also updated emails. We have some staff that are going by new names this summer, either married or reverted back to previous names. So keep your eye on that to see those changes as they come through. We added, one of the things that was repeatedly asked for last year was a way to email staff absences. That is here with being able to email our new administrative assistant, Kiara Chappell. Her email address is in the handbook to be able to know how to click, and instead of having to call the line if the phones are down or if something isn't working, you can quickly send an email off to her to call your student out absent or tardy.
Will she follow up with a phone call? Just,
Usually I follow up with a response to the email.
Okay.
If that's the case. So if you email a student out, usually there'll be some type of response. Thank you, I've received your email. Your student has been noted. If she didn't get the email, then you'd get a phone call.
Okay.
Section 3.1, I believe that, going from the change list is not the way I can track what I changed, so sorry for the, 3.1 was I believe it's the promotion. And it was all about passing grades, which is the antithesis of what we do at this point in time. So 3.1, it took out earned passing grades to demonstrate competency, and it keeps that D or better in the current grade level, and it adds students in grade 5 through 8 who fail 3 or more of their courses. Mr. Sullivan, who is here today, did a great job with summer scholars, and that's going to be something that we're going to really be looking at putting a little more teeth into when students are not demonstrating that competency to increase that academic rigor, that they will be required to attend summer school in order to be promoted. We're going to look at really building that up for next year. Sorry, I'm looking back and forth between screens here. Section 3.2 is the easy update. Any other questions about anything that was on here in regards to changes?
9.6, I know in my school, students leaving for fire drills is a huge issue. And I don't know how it is in the middle. I know in the elementary school, they're pretty quiet and follow the directions, but somehow when they go to middle school, they think it's chatty time. And it's scary because they need to be able to listen to all the instructions, people shouting, whatever, the voice on everything. And I
hate
think
to
that's
call it
really
take a knee gate, but I'm going to talk about take a knee gate as part of how that came up last year. In regards to just redirecting students, there was a significant safety concern last year in one of our first fire drills.
The
where
fire
we
chief
had
commented, that's bad.
We had the fire chief, the assistant fire chief, we had Mrs. Thayer standing there on the corner asking the kids to quiet down. They'd pass Mrs. Thayer and they'd, it was like recess. And they were jumping on each other, they were tackling each other.
Horrible.
It was not safe. So we wanted to really make sure that was clear. The purpose behind whether it was take a knee, which I would not do again, but but I would still want to redirect kids because my goal is to keep your kids safe while they're with us. My goal is to make sure they understand.
So much.
Over a crowd of 350 kids for sure, plus adults. It's a question of just making sure that understand. Yes, me as well. That's why I ended up in here.
For a fire chief to comment, it really is excessive.
It is. It sure is. So we wanted to make sure that was clear. The purpose behind being quiet is so that you can hear directions. It's not just because I want to be mean and yell at kids. It's because directions can change at any time. The fire truck is going to have to, we learned last year, the fire truck might have to come in at dismissal per se, or at a different time frame where we have to be able to get directions on how to move kids from one point to another. So when that emergency drill is in place, we want to make sure that kids understand why they need to be quiet to hear those directions and keep them safe.
Well, it's in the book now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to approve the middle school handbook and changes.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Heidi?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Liz? Aye. Andrew?
5-0-0. I'm an aye.
Thank you.
And I know we've got a second public session coming up in
Yeah,
May.
after Mr. and
So-
I'll be shorter and sweeter.
I don't
How
know.
about that?
Yeah.
Not the sweeter part, but the shorter.
No, our handbook, as you can see, most of the changes were basically clerical, cleaning things up. A few things I just wanted to point out for you, and also because I actually have a chance to publicly. Last spring, someone said, "Hey, we ever going to go back to arrival before COVID?" And I said, "I thought arrival was always at 8:05." They said, "No, it used to be at 8:10." So we're going to go back to 8:10. So we make that point. We've corrected the just a price increase for lost or overly damaged library books, and I think this is really elementary school when the parents going to look at the handbook. We had before she left or leaving, Adrian kind of really spell out some of the medical stuff that has to do with medications that are left abandoned, meaning the parents haven't come and picked them back up, and also reasons for excusal from school or non-participation in school. And she did I'll say a detailed job on that section, leaving no questions. So those are kind of the main points for us in changes.
Anyone have any comments?
I don't remember it being 8:10. I believe you, but I don't remember that.
I have nothing to go on, so I just had to believe
I
them.
do. I remember it being 8:10.
I do.
I remember it, yeah.
I
8:10
think,
to 8:20.
and I think we added the 5 minutes because we knew there would be more parent drop.
Yeah, we had to
Yeah.
space it
At
out,
that
and
time.
so.
Yeah.
There's still
But
more
students get off the
parent
bus at what time?
Well, 8:10 is about when the first bus is rolling in too. So, yeah, for the past years, it's been 8:05. There's usually one run of cars before the first buses show up.
I'll make a motion to approve the GMS handbook.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Heidi?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Liz? Aye. Andrew?
Aye.
You have to say it 5-0-0.
5-0-0. I'd get that out just so parents are aware, right, of the change in times.
Yeah, so I've been doing the intro, and now I'm going to start doing the Facebook posts for like
When does your weekly newsletter come out?
weekly newsletter comes back the Friday
Friday.
before.
Awesome.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
At this time, I'd like to have the second community input. Does any community have any input?
Please.
Name
Good
and
evening.
address, please.
Matt Shoemaker, 20 Greenwich Road. So, I mean, you guys all know I'm, vehemently in support of the elementary school. With that said, I do think it's, incumbent on someone to jump in and talk about this. I think Peter's points were fairly important in the consideration of going in March and asking voters to, again, vote for something. Especially given that, I mean, this is something that I think is great, but I think it's important that people feel confident that there's not, backroom dealings or anything like that. And I think that this, unfortunately, could have that image to it. So I definitely have a few questions. I think, obviously, you've confirmed that it was the seller that approached you for this, right?
Yes.
So there's no question as to whether they approached you. And I think, this seller is doing a really nice thing for the town. So I think I want to be respectful in how I ask questions, because I'm sure that I would presume there are some personal circumstances that have led to the seller raising this question. I don't know what level of disclosure is appropriate or what level of questioning is appropriate. But I think it's worth acknowledging that there probably will be some people that are at least curious as to, what the impetus was, because ultimately we are looking at, roughly a change of October to March is not a very long time, right? Before the actual contract would, prevail essentially. I'm going to also, presume that there may be some question as to whether or not this transaction would continue but for you taking this action. Otherwise, I would assume that you might not want to take this action. So, obviously the level of disclosure that's appropriate for that, I don't know. I'm sure you talked to town council about that, but I think it's just important to keep an eye on, because I do think, as someone who supports the project, I want to know that in March, when I go to vote for this, that the people around me at least feel like everything was done above board. With that said, I think that there's some questions that hopefully can be answered. Again, town council wasn't here answering these questions, so I don't know if these were answered for you. But with respect to the nature of the contract, right? So ultimately, she's going to get paid out before the approval of a school. This sale or this purchase is conditioned upon the approval of a school and will continue to be, correct? So,
Well, not if we pay her the money.
well, no, I don't think that
We have
that's,
then a certain period of time, based on the warrant article, we have, till 2029,
Right.
which was brought up at the deliberative, why that was added, and we were told at deliberative that it was required.
So if the voters,
I
are
feel
at
like we need
special.
to answer these
No,
questions when
absolutely,
we usually
absolutely
don't
do, and I thank you for
respond.
asking them, right? So, in a special election, right, if the voters, we don't have the finalized language of any articles being presented, right? So it's all just draft at this moment, right? But if the voters were to deny or not approve the special election in the terms and conditions changes in essentially the authorization of us paying the $497,000, it defaults back to what the voters approved in March of this past year, meaning that the board will have a decision to make, right? Do we proceed forward on a no vote at the special election in March of next year again and ask the voters again? That's not a good situation to be in.
Well, we won't have any land.
The no vote is not on the question of whether there will be an elementary school. The no vote is on whether.
On the money.
The no vote is whether or not we are authorized to to spend the money that we've
That's right.
already raised.
but we have
The school would
two,
have to pass in March in order to pay her the money in March. So
but I think it's important to identify, we have two things at work here. We have a warrant article that was approved. We also have a purchase and sale agreement. Those are two separate binding things, right? And so I guess my question is, would there be an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement at this point, right? Because as the purchase and sale agreement, which I don't have in front of me, but to the best of my recollection, as it stands, that closing was not to occur until the approval of a school or 2029.
That's right.
And that 2029, Peter, if my recollection is correct, was just to allow for the second half of that, the purchase and sale component of that, to not have to be extended each time if a vote failed each time. So it was just to allow that contract to remain binding until the
Well, the
2029.
contract wouldn't remain binding. If it doesn't pass within 2 years, the purchase and sale is null and void. What it would do is allow the district to renegotiate with the seller at maybe a different amount, or they could
Different
withdraw
terms.
totally.
For different terms, right? But it wouldn't automatically cause it to terminate at that
Right.
point. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is, if the money is, so if this election passes, if the vote passes and the money is authorized to be released, would there be an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement at that point that would either have some sort of clawback where they could either buy the land back, for example, at full price, right, to get the town out of that, or to maybe remove the restrictions on the land that it has to be used for a school?
The answer is potentially. We don't know what the article will say yet. Potentially, I think that's
That
what.
would all be included in it.
Yes.
Okay, but there is the potential, though, for this to be something, so the town, so
And it
you
would be
can,
actually, it could be more favorable terms for the town too.
right. I mean, I did hear multiple people that expressed that might be, something that they'd be interested in, so it seems like that might be a negotiating tactic. Because as far as I can recall, this would require an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement. This is not the terms of the purchase and sale agreement are unequivocally clear that the closing is not to occur, right? So the seller has come to us and said, hey, I'm asking you kindly to amend the purchase and sale agreement for whatever personal reasons those may be.
Correct.
And given this seller's,
Situation.
and generosity and, stature in the town, that I assume that the board feels that it's worth considering that. So I think we can all rest assured that there will be some close looking at the terms of the purchase and sale agreement prior to the warrant being drafted to make sure that it's.
Absolutely.
Yep,
100%.
That's the intent.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Anyone else? School goals.
All right, so the school goal document, so, get this document pulled up. And I'll actually start off with the district page, and then we'll work our way back toward, actually, Dan will go first this time, so we'll work our way up. So basically, this is an effort each year to link the school board goal document. Remember, that's a I think it was 2021 through 2024, so that document will sunset this coming school year. But we try to say, based upon the goals that the board has set, what are our action priority steps at each school level and also at the district level. So, and so this document you're looking at is structured as sort of a report out on how we did last year and then what it is that we intend to focus on this year. So there were three district goals. The first was regarding the LMS building upgrades. That's tied back to the school board goal on facility improvement. And our action steps for last year were to complete phase 2, which was the HVAC, solar, and lighting. We are 90% done with that. We're really tying up the kitchen work at this point, and then, of course, the solar needs to be done. So our action steps going into this year are to complete that kitchen and cafeteria. That is slated to be done in August. There will then be a punch list completed on the overall project, and so we will need to get that done by October at the latest. And then the solar installation, I had on here 1223. We learned today relative to the battery storage components that it's actually going to be a little bit later than that. So it's going to have to bump out until March of 24. And so those are the things that we will continue to monitor this year, and then we will be done with the LMS upgrades and project. The Robin Riley Elementary School, as we've talked about tonight, the goal for last year was to get the purchase and sales agreement on the land and then to complete the building design and the guaranteed maximum price. That did not happen. We are continuing at the end of the year to build clear community buy-in. We have this new wrinkle that has hit us. And so we now going forward need to hold community forums and information sessions throughout the fall, winter to bring a bond vote to the 2024 annual meeting. And then, of course, we now, as of tonight, have this special process that we need to follow through. So I'll be updating those action steps based on tonight's conversation. And then culture and climate action research. As you know, we were looking to engage the Center for School Climate and Learning to work with all 3 schools last year and their teams. And at the end of the year, we had done that. We had data that was collected by each of the school's teams. And then this year, we're going to continue that partnership with the center. I know Bill Preble has met with the high school and me on Monday and has upcoming appointments with the middle school and the elementary school. And so the data that was collected is in the process of being turned over to the school teams, and they will be using that to drive their action research this year. Mr. Plansky asked for an update on the data, and the intent is to bring the teams forward in the fall to show exactly what they've learned, exactly what action steps they've set, and to give a presentation to the board. So that will be forthcoming for the board later on in the fall. And that's what I have for the school district goals reporting out and projecting forward.
So is this a next summer exercise where we refresh this, or is it happening earlier?
So what we did last year is we did a mid-year refresh. We did a mid-year update on where we were with the status. So I would envision that in January, February, we would drop off last year's action steps and end-of-year status and refresh that with an update as to where we are with the 23-24 action steps.
Okay.
Any questions or comments for me on the district's focal points?
No, I mean, so I'm assuming for this current year, is this something that the board updates and we can add to this? Right, under school goals and school district goals, is this has to be a living, breathing type of document?
It's a living, breathing document.
Yeah, okay.
All right, then I'll switch over to Dan and have him talk about where he is with his goals and what his steps are.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, as was mentioned, each school then creates goals that are based kind of within the framework of those board goals. And so the first one that we have is a continuation of the goal, basically to get PLCs or collaborative team process up and running. Last year, a lot of time was spent building up the structures and the mechanics around that through norm building and process loops and things like that. And so this year, kind of combining that newly formed structure as well as adding in more data points. So we're going to spend a good amount of time with some PD that's owed to us through iReady. So we're going to actually be able to use some more of those formal data points as well as mixing them all in. As I met with teams, as you go through the PLC process or the collaborative team process, we always say the deeper you get into the data or the more specific you get, the more uncomfortable it can get, but basically the more meaningful outcomes that you can get. So we're kind of getting to that point too where we're going to get, and then we can switch also then so the conversations go from data, which is about student progress, and then can turn that into instructional practices. So basically it's not just about what the kids can do, but what also we as instructors can do. So that's where we see this next year going with that goal. Oh, okay.
Are you turning that up? I'm freezing.
Oh.
You'll never hear me say that. Thank you. Sorry. Sorry, Dan.
Okay. The second goal has to do with the social emotional learning and a lot of what happens with our counseling department. Actually, going back to the handbook, which I forgot to mention too, was a key change was that we went from school counselor to counseling department. Now that we're in year 2 of having a full-time social worker as well as a school counselor, they kind of work in collaboration to meet some of those. And so what we do hope is that the work that's done in that office can kind of spread throughout the school and also act somewhat independent of that office as well. So our hope is, as Mrs. Hayes continues her work, what she's also doing is empowering the classroom teachers through tools, through strategies, through lessons, so that the kids are getting more of those CASEL frameworks, which aren't just about just social and emotional, but they're about self-reliance, they're about executive functioning, all those skills, but they become more part of their day as opposed to just the half an hour that she gets in there, per month. So it becomes part of their daily activity. So continuing that work, which we make good strides on, as well as continue to make those meaningful whole school meetings that we've had and recognizing students for their good work. And then the third one, which was the goal that started with coming up with that kind of ladder of skills. And so our hope is that we can then have a document that is known, that is published, that parents can look at, that anyone can look at and say, we expect these students to have these skills before they enter grade X, and we'll work on them so that by the time they leave grade X, they'll have these skills. And we started that exercise 3 years ago where we said, name all the skills we want our kids to have, and we ended up with 137 of them. So it's taken us a while to whittle them down, but there is a hyperlink in there. It kind of blends in there, but there's a list, and you can kind of see where we've left off with, we expect kids coming into kindergarten have these, and we'll give them these when they're in kindergarten, so that's first grade. So now we just need to work, we've kind of done a lot of the hatchet work, and now we need to do the scalpel work of just making sure that it aligns, as well as we recognize that a lot of what appears on that list sounds a lot like the stuff that appears in goal 2. So kind of aligning those to come up with that final product. So we're looking forward to kind of having our year 3 and hopefully wrapping up these goals. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Great. It's been an easy day at this table.
Right, switching over to the middle school.
It's great to be the middle child because you always know when you're going to go. I never have to wonder if I'm going first or last. I'm always in the middle.
Jake has 2 things to do.
So our goals, what just happened to my goal? Did I just delete my goal while I sat down? Hang on.
No, it's there.
No, I'm not on my screen.
Oh, that's my
Oh,
screen.
that's my screen, that's why you might have deleted your goal.
Hold on. Let me just make sure I didn't just delete while I was. Okay, I think it's still there. All right. So we spent last year really working on getting to know toe dips into responsive classroom. We had our October 7th full school training in getting to know what responsive classroom was, getting some basic information, and then we really had an amazing committed team who came in for 4 days of the first week of summer vacation to come in during Live to Learn and really get the full training. And what we can say is, of those 30 staff, they all drank the Kool-Aid. They were like, this is going to be great. This is going to be exactly what our kids need to help them feel a sense of belonging and purpose to our school, which is our overarching goal moving into next year. I know we said the word belonging last year, but we spent the year just trying to not get anybody hurt with construction, make sure that everybody had the lid on it. And we know that that sense of belonging, I haven't seen the data yet from the survey, but if I were predicting, I'm going to say kids don't feel like they belong in the middle school. It is a fact, and they don't feel like they're part of the decisions and part of what's going on. And Responsive Classroom is going to help to address some of those disconnect that the kids feel. It's a time where kids go through some of their biggest developmental changes in their entire career in education, from kindergarten through 12th grade. I think middle school is that toughest time frame because they go through so many changes, and we want to be able to meet them where they are and address those needs as we go through that process. We'll be addressing that through academic and behavioral success will be a result from that implementation of Responsive Classroom across the board. And we have a plan to have that team who was trained are going to be coming together in the next few weeks to develop a plan to help train our staff who were not able to come for that training at the end of June.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So for Responsive Classroom, obviously I just heard about a lot of good things out of it. I also heard you say that the students at LMS don't feel a sense of belonging at the school.
Correct.
I'm not getting the action between the two and how Responsive Classroom is going to help the students.
Fabulous. So Responsive Classroom is not a program. It's not a
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset, and it's a way of how you interact and the language that you use with children. It's a common language that becomes...
Use it at my school.
It becomes how you speak with kids and to kids and help them envision who they are and what they are to become. It's about making sure that every day, every kid in that school is greeted by name as they walk in to a classroom every day. That, in and of itself, is a shift. Because there are kids who come into that school and duck their head and like, don't talk to me, don't look at me, I don't want to know anything.
Throw up that hoodie.
And right, the hood goes up, they tuck in and they don't want to know. So it's about building that. It's setting goals. It's helping kids talk. That Responsive Classroom has conversations that are built into how you teach both academics as well as that social emotional connection. So it's about making different groupings of kids so that when you come together, no, you're not always going to get to be with your BFF, and you all want to be with your BFF and you feel more comfortable there, but as you become young adults, you have to learn how to interact with people you hate across the room. You got to know how to go over to them, and kindness matters. And I might not like Corey Sullivan. Just kidding.
Good face.
Right out there.
Like,
That's said with all love.
I would do weekend check-ins and say, Jen saw this movie and a kid she doesn't like. Well, I saw that movie too, so they know they have things in common.
Yep.
And it's just a way of
It makes it more it makes it more welcoming. So Responsive Classroom, you'll hear us use that term a lot. It's just about responding to where kids are developmentally, emotionally, socially, academically, and meeting their needs. So it's going to build our academic rigor because we're going to see where our students are and move them forward versus kind of, I'm going to say, going with...
What I've just heard is it helps build personal connections.
Correct.
Right? And that then establishes rapport and trust
Correct.
amongst students and amongst staff to students.
Correct.
Okay.
And staff to staff, because we're going to be
Staff.
modeling it through our PLCs and through our staff meetings and through it is going to be how we operate this year.
like if you would say, Mrs. McDonald, this homework is stupid. I'm sorry you feel that way, Andrew. How can I make it more interesting for you?
Put it in the trash.
Oh, then you're one of the kids in my class.
Well, so our second goal, are we okay? Is that?
Yeah, thank
okay,
you.
perfect. Our second goal is about that personalization of the best block. Again, did I delete it? What the heck?
That box is now empty, so I don't know where it went.
Oh, the action steps? Oops. I didn't do it.
They were just there. Maybe, did I?
Oh,
Ta-da! I did it. So the personalization of the best block, I know last year we shifted to all at the same time. We shifted to a process through the middle of the year where each academic class had the because there was a misperception of what best was as it was morphing and changing from when it was developed prior to my arrival. As it kind of became I'm going to say loosey-goosey a little bit in the course of my first year at LMS, but it is designed to be academic minutes. So I think that's where the confusion was in the best changes that occurred this year. So allowing for that individualization and personalization, allowing for the academic support and remediation and acceleration where needed for students, while allowing that choice in a schedule for each grade level that would allow every teacher to, I don't want to say touch a child, but to meet with a child if they need to, for a week. So for example, I'm going to pick on Corey again because he's here and he knows what I'm saying. So if Corey, the math teacher in 5th grade, needed to talk to Liz, before it would be like, well, I'm going to take him on Wednesday because I just feel like Wednesday is a good day to talk to Liz. But Liz also needs to be taken for science, and she also needs to be taken for language arts, and she also needs to be taken for social studies. So those 4 teachers were battling over what day can I meet with Liz to help her either get caught up on work, figure out what's going on with how she's not understanding a concept or how she needs acceleration in a concept. So the teachers designed a rotation through the week where even all staff, including Unified Arts, had a designated day. So they knew that on Mondays, hypothetically, it's math. Mondays is math. So that group knew that kids that needed math supports could be pulled during that Monday for that support. We also implemented the instructional lessons in iReady, which is exactly where the student is targeted for their learning. The best teacher on the planet can differentiate, I'm going to say, 3 to 5 levels in a classroom. iReady will allow you to differentiate. If you have 25 kids in your classroom, it's going to target each of them. There's difference between the iReady instructional and the iReady assessment. The iReady instructional is going through the lessons that teach them where their specific deficits are and build them forward. So we built all of those things in through our best last year. I know there was some confusion with the difference between iReady instructional and iReady assessment. We only do the iReady assessment 3 times a year, and it's just to get that benchmark of that dipstick of where they are at that moment in time. The instructional is that designed to be done throughout each week and as we go, and it's a program that we pay for that has proven to kind of close some gaps for a lot of our students and improve where they are. We'll look at the data. We'll see in 2 weeks to talk about that part. But improve the data in some components. We still have a lot of areas to work on, and that need to keep that academic focus during BEST is here and is critical for us for next year. So that academic rigor will be part of what BEST looks like, but also we're going to be incorporating that academic advisory through responsive classroom during our BEST session. Our BEST is also moving from kind of the middle of the day to the end of the day because brain breaks and physical activities are built into the way responsive classrooms instruction goes, so they're not going to need to. The BEST walk was built in as part of COVID protocols, and although everybody likes to go out and take the BEST walk, you can build that movement into activities that you're doing for academic purposes or activities that you're doing for that social emotional learning within that period as well, so we don't have to see laps around the building. So that's our BEST adjustment. Is that?
Can you just reiterate, how many days are they going to have iReady, 2 days? One could be math, one could be reading.
An iReady lesson is designed to
20
take
minutes?
between 20 and 30 minutes if the student is focused and paying
And
attention to what.
They will take the results from their test where they were. If Mrs. McDonald didn't do great in fraction, I would be getting fraction work.
Right.
And it's not bad. iReady isn't bad. That's my thing. But Oh my God, what did I do? Sorry.
Following somebody.
So and when I was Title I in Merrimack, that's what we used for math. It wasn't Title I, but if you don't know how to add 1 + 1, they put one apple up there and you'd have to put 1. So it's not every day, it's not a punishment,
Nope.
it's not, okay.
It's not a punishment, it's not, and the students had that expectation. We're talking about holding kids accountable to complete one lesson in a whole week, at home, at school, on the roof, in the car, on the way someplace.
Well-
One lesson a week in language arts and one lesson a week in math, and if those were completed, they didn't have to do it during
But what
BESS.
about a student who's at a 10th grade level in 5th grade?
Then they age out of the lessons and they were exempted from that and had I know our 7th grade did an amazing book group with
So they don't have to
Pencil.
do it?
They don't.
Okay. That's how,
You mentioned the whole BESS and the laps around the building, right? And how that will likely, sounds like, go away, right? I actually view that as a good, I view the
Absolutely.
walks as a good thing, right? Because that was the mental health break, the fresh air moment that a lot of the kids needed.
They're still going to have that opportunity. It's just going to come in a little bit different ways, and it's going to be embedded in instruction and in their regular. They might. It's not going to be a 20-minute go outside and walk laps and throw a football down the walkway and lose that 20 minutes of instructional time. It's going to be taking that fresh air break or taking that brain break or getting that physical activity, that movement in. Whether it's in the classroom or out of the classroom is going to be up to the teams and how they decide that works in, but it's not going away. Does that make sense?
Sort of. So it sounds like it's still an option for depending upon the teacher on the day.
It's on the team in the day. Yep. So I would say if it's going to be a team decision, it's not going to be just this class. Every time they go to math, they all go out for a walk. It's going to be, as a team, we're going to decide that period 2 this day is going to be our movement break where we get to go outside, we get to go, maybe it's to the gym and do a team building activity, because again, it's talking about that belonging and coming together. What was happening a lot on those walks is that's where our conflicts were arising, that's where kids are getting into trouble because there's not directed
But I think it's also
instruction.
where a lot of kids were getting that just mental health break for a few minutes during their day. Right? And now they may or may not have that opportunity.
They will have that opportunity just in a different structure
In
than
a different way, but through instruction, where that wasn't necessarily instruction.
I think the one key thing to keep in mind is that our middle school has one of the shortest days of any middle school. And prior to this, that was a study hall period, which was non-instructional time. And when we analyzed it against the required minutes under the minimum standards, we were not meeting those minutes. And so we had to create the best period to be alternative learning, to ensure that, sitting in a study hall is not instructional time. Engaged in alternative learning activities is instructional time. So part of the reason why BEST came about was to make sure that we met the minimum requirements. So what Jen's proposing is that we can still have those movement breaks, but they need to have an instructional component embedded.
Can I borrow you for a second? And after I tease you, can you come up for a second?
I mean, Mr. Sullivan's a great 5th grade incoming class, right? Kids who are used to having a recess will no longer have a recess, and I know many students were looking towards that.
So, can you talk a little bit about how much movement we did during our 4-day training in responsive classroom as adults?
So, I mean, they model, and that was a big thing, as well as modeling everything, and from coming in and kind of activities of greeting people and kind of welcoming to start the day to brain breaks. So a lot of that can be embedded into the way you either stop the class and re-energize or bring them back, and there's sort of very specific types of activities for that, compared to like, hey, this is an academic gallery walk, so everyone has an article and that movement is that
they
we're all
put
checking
pictures
out.
or stations on the wall and the kids have to go around with clipboards and do stuff like that. Like that's movement within a classroom.
Right, which is much different than saying, okay, everyone, it's time to leave the classroom and take a walk around the building and then come back. So, I mean, especially on rainy days, we're kind of doing those indoor movement and activities in lieu of some of those walks on those days anyway. So some of the kids are kind of used to those.
And with our new unified arts schedule, we were able to get PE in every grade, which it was missing from. So
Right.
we're back to
That's a great thing.
that's also helping. You know, that was one of the areas that we recognized as an issue. And with Mrs. Thayer's amazing creativity and conversation with all of our unified arts teachers, we were able to kind of make sure students' needs are being met. So I'm not saying kids aren't going to get movement in the day. I'm not saying they're not going to get outside and get fresh air and be able to talk to their friends and walk around. But it's just not going to be that you're not going to come in at 7th period during best and see the whole school outside walking laps.
Good Lord.
All right, well, for all those parents that are listening, I'd like to hear your feedback on how it's going, right? As
Yep.
we get into the school year. And I think we need to be open to change if
For
we need
best?
to. Yeah, for how this operates.
And I think that what you're saying right there leads to my next goal. So I can talk a little bit about that. Thanks, Corey. So the next goal is about increasing that community awareness and strengths and needs at LMS. We plan to take the feedback from the spring surveys. I'm meeting with the Bills on Monday next week to get the open text information. Is it qualitative data? We got the quantitative data rough.
Bills, is this Mr. Preble and Mr.
Yes.
This is the Center for School Climate and Learning.
So we got the quantitative draft data at the very, very end of the school year. We're able to share it with our C3PO team at the very, very end of the school year and kind of talk about what we're going to do with that launching back in August. And then we'll have that qualitative data, which allow us to kind of get into the more specific and nitty gritty issues that are recognized areas of strengths and weaknesses for LMS or perceived deficits for LMS. We're going to continue to refine communication to help all stakeholders, staff, students, and families to feel informed and part of the process. And one of the ways that we're going to work on that is to implement a links roundtable monthly with coming in to meet with me. I think that one of the things that, again, working on construction, working on trying to keep all those moving parts and pieces going, an area that I know I was not successful with getting out and meeting everybody in the community and being able to talk to and having them be able to come in and share, hey, I'm really upset about what happened with the fire drill, or I'm really upset about, can you explain to me what's going on with BEST, or how iReady works, and it will have that opportunity for that face-to-face, not behind Facebook, not behind a links in the loop. It's that open dialogue and open conversation to be able to help.
So we have a monthly links meeting. We have a coffee meeting with Mr. Mitchell.
Yep.
Right. What are you doing?
Oh, he has it. Oh, he has it. It's
Okay.
breakfast with administration or something? Tea with CH, I don't know.
Yep. So it's gonna be just an opportunity for anybody who wants to come out and sit and have my ear for an hour and talk about what you'd like to see changed as part of LMS. It's an open forum. There'll be agenda items to kind of give a bouncing off point, but if you have something that's interesting or you're interested in talking about, please feel free to share, and we're looking forward. And while we're on the hiring bandwagon, we're still looking for paraprofessionals and a lunch monitor. So if anybody is interested in great mother's hours, coming in and spending quality time with 354 middle schoolers, we would love to have you, so please join us.
Good plug.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Hess, goals and segue right into your diploma.
Oh, we're doing both these?
Well, unless you want me to.
I didn't know what was on the agenda. So last year, I kind of inherited the goals. I had sat down in the summer with Mike and Val and Josh, and we had kind of developed based on that. So, the PLC goal, we really looked at kind of revisiting how those would. So what we did is we really formalized the PLC structure, what the expectations, what the norms are. We had a working agenda document for all departments to use. Admin sat in on PLC meetings throughout the year. We even got Mary Woodman would join us in some of those as well, which was fantastic. The beginning of the year, we focused on instructional practices within the classroom, student engagement, and then looking at the needs and adjusting. The second half of the year, we really shifted to curriculum work and making sure competencies and units were aligning. Moving forward, we're going to combine a little bit this PLC goal with the third goal, the data usage goal. We're really now going to deep dive into our curriculum facilitators and our teachers having hands-on that PSAT, SAT, SAS data, and really looking at, and I'm not a test scores guy, we got to get our test scores up. There's no reason they should be where they at in the decline over the past 5 years of where they're at. So a lot of it is really just they never experienced that type of questioning until they sit down with the exams. And so really kind of looking at how we can align our curriculum. I'm not teaching to the test, but aligning our curriculum so that they're more familiar with those types of questions and those types of things that they will see across the building. This isn't just an English problem. This isn't just a science problem. So really using all of our PLCs this year to have that as a goal. Not listed on here, but I think there's probably every curriculum document since the beginning of time at Campbell High School in a 3-ring binder, either
Yes.
in my office or the conference room. I've been going through those lately, and now I'm just going to turn them over to the departments and say, fix them, update them, make them better, go. So that's not on here, but that's like my housekeeping thing that, I got to work on. So the second goal was our advisory goal. This was something last year that really got pushed to the back burner that Dana and myself and actually Noah Benoit have really ran with this summer. So it really started last year when you guys approved our flex block. We're now calling it CAG time, Cougar Academic Growth Time. So Monday and Friday we'll focus on our advisories. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be our real academic, but every student can grow regardless of where they fall. So we're not talking interventions, we're not talking enrichment. It's growth for every student academically across the board. But what we've done is we have created activities and topics that focus on our work study practices and core values that we'll focus on throughout the year. We've got, for teachers that struggle, we've got a, hey, you can do this. And for the teachers that excel in advisory, we have, hey, just stick to this message. We'll have my monthly HESS huddles. So really those consistent messages across the entire building are flowing throughout the year. We're also going to collect data and feedback throughout the year so that we can pivot and change. This is the first year we're trying this big flex time usage of time at the high school. And we talked about this when we approved time. It's going to be a little bit muddy at first. We're going to spend the next 4 weeks really finalizing that adaptive scheduling and where are kids going to go and how do we make sure that works. And then we're going to use September and October to really gauge how this is working so that we can make sure that we're using our time effectively in the ways that we have set out to use this time.
So you're gonna have like a adaptive schedule that.
So on Monday, and advisory, kids
takes-
will sign up for.
I wanna see Mr. Hess, I wanna see the science teacher and then
Correct.
on Mondays and Fridays,
Yep,
they
and
stay
then
with advisory.
little Lizzie's failing science, but she wants to go hang out in the gym. That's not
Totally.
an option for her because she's got to go.
But how do we know that?
Because we can set parameters on it. So
And I know it's always been a concern about the wandering during advisory.
no such thing anymore.
Nice.
It's not going to be an issue.
And like, so-and-so, the student council has to work on a banner and they're dancing down the hallway or.
Not on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. They don't.
Okay,
So.
it's a safety issue. I
Yep.
know you are aware of it, yeah.
Yep. So the third goal is the increased awareness and usage of multiple data types. This one kind of fits into our first goal and to our last one. We really just this year, this was really on just an administrative level. We looked at the data, we looked at the test grades, we looked at the graduation stuff. And we kind of talked about, okay, what are we going to do? We've got our feet wet a little bit more as an admin team. Now we're really rolling this data out to our next level of our curriculum facilitators for those academic pieces. And then we're using our Center for School Climate and Learning data, our work with Bill Preble, to kind of work into our tweaking of our last goal. Last year, as my first year in the building, I really wanted to foster a positive staff climate and culture. I'm shifting that to a positive school climate and culture overall. It's kids and adults. We're going to use that data from the climate and culture to make our action plans with the students, make our action plans with the adults in the building. I really want to work this year on establishing a Campbell Community Council that's made up of students, admin, parents, and a board member to allow buy-in from all stakeholders in decision-making at the high school. We saw that a lot in our feedback from students, as they don't feel like they have a voice within the school. I want to allow that opportunity, and I want parents to feel like they have a say in the school as well, and not just a I disagree with, or hey, that was really great, but let's sit down and talk about what we want Campbell High School to really look like as a group of individuals.
Instead of just that small group that has been leading, yeah.
Yeah, I made the joke, I won't say the parent's name because they're not here, but I always make the joke with this one parent. If I hold coffee with Jake Hess, this one parent and I are going to sit in the library once a month and have coffee together, and we're going to talk about how great their child is and stuff. But I want more people involved in to see the school as a resource. You know, I got plans for what open house can look like this year at Campbell, and it's going to be different than what it's been in the past.
Just having more kids being part of the whole situation instead of that same group that started in middle school and worked their whole way up.
Well, it's a different purpose too. Student council does amazing things at Campbell High School,
Absolutely.
and I'm not going to change their focus on what
Right.
they do. This is a completely different structured
it.
focus. And then I got to continue the staff climate and culture events. We had such a great year with our, we had a family cookout night at homecoming. Staff could bring their families in, and
love
I
that.
cooked for
Yep.
everybody, and it was just really nice. And then, you know, the coffee with admin on Friday mornings, and we do potlucks together, and just continuing those events to build relationships and camaraderie within the staff. But that's really kind of what we're looking to do this year. And again, you know, it changed with small tweaks in the student handbook, expectations on staff as we start the year as well, because those changes in the handbook for kids echo changes and expectations for the adults in the building as well. So, you know, step by step, just kind of moving in this positive direction at Campbell is what we're really working on.
Will you be training the teachers on adaptive scheduler at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, as soon as I finish my training on it, we'll get that done.
Power School. If I can figure it out, you can.
Andrea's gonna hook us up this within the next week or so, so we'll be all set with that. So those are our goals.
Don't have any questions? Comments, concerns, Heidi? Anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. So you met with a group of parents and you discussed a diploma, what's it? Alternative diploma.
Well, yeah,
different.
I'm gonna backtrack for a minute.
Explain
and
the diplomas and all that other stuff.
I know
There we
it's
go.
8:45, so I'm not gonna be too long-winded.
No, we're way ahead of schedule. Take your
When I
time.
first got to Campbell, I was actually taken aback, because my experiences at my last two districts, that there was only one diploma track. So, you know, it had been in the back of my mind, conversations with Val. I had talked with Sophia Fowler at the very beginning of the year about a 20-credit state diploma at the very beginning. And then, you know, a couple months ago, we got emails from Kristen and Sam, who are in the house today, talking about...
Now we know why you're here. Got it.
Talking about talking about an alternative diploma track for some of our students with IEPs.
Yeah.
And that kind of really just allowed the parents, myself, Val, Mary Widman, Sophia, Dr. Jetty in the conversation, to have conversations about the different options for students. So, you know, as I look at this, you know, currently we have one option at the high school, and it's our 24-credit diploma. I listed the requirements there. And this works for approximately 90% of every student that comes through our doors, which is pretty good, but not when you say that we want to develop a school that works for all kids. So, you know, in-house, there are no other options really. You either get the CHS diploma, we send you, our kids go to Londonderry Night School, or we lose them.
What do they get at Londonderry High School?
They get a 20-credit state diploma.
Got it.
So, we were thinking that really, if we look at, there's three groups of students that I think that we're currently underserving that we could serve much better. First and foremost, students who school's not just for them, or they struggle. They want a high school diploma. They want to work hard, but they're struggling to reach that 24 credits, and usually math is the killer. We also have a group of struggling learners who are super capable of meeting a ton of competencies, but not all of them without modifications. And traditionally, those students would only be given a certificate of attendance. And I think we're underserving a small population there. And then finally, our S3 program, a certificate of attendance when really they're working on life skills. They're working on goals throughout their time. And so we'll talk a little bit about just some language change there. So the 3 additional diploma options that we would like to offer at Campbell High School, and I put the dates for when I would like to do this. First and foremost is the New Hampshire State Diploma. It's a 20-credit diploma. We can easily enact that for next year as an option for kids. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. There's an alternate diploma that we'll talk about. That I want to push off a year as an option because a lot goes into making that work, and it's a lot of front loading to make sure we do it smoothly. And then the goals diploma I put for the following year as well. Hypothetically, we could also probably do that this coming up school year, but I wanted to leave the option in case there's some things that we have to kind of work on.
So, questions?
Yes.
Right, NH State Diploma, you just said for next year, I think you actually mean this current school year.
This coming, yes.
That's aligned to the dates.
Yeah, 23, 24.
Because I am new to the various diplomas, help me understand the difference between a Campbell diploma.
Well, let's take a look at the next slide. Andrew, thank you so much.
Teeing you guys all up today.
We talked about this at the time. So, listed up there is the New Hampshire State 20-credit diploma. The bottom is what our diploma has additionally to what's on the screen. So I listed it as that's what is less of what we have. So it's less half art visual, less half computer, less half math, 1 full less science, half less social studies, and a total credit less of electives. It still hits, New Hampshire says this is a diploma, this is great, it still hits on all of this. Our diploma just goes above and beyond by 4 credits.
And how does that align to other towns? Like, is it normal to have 24 credits?
It varies school to school. There are plenty.
We had 28 at the regional when I first got there. When I left, they were at 26 and a half. Wyndham High School is 24 credit, but they also offer 2 alternative diplomas as well. A lot of school, it depends on. I think Souhegan's 20. I don't think that they might be a 20 or 24 as well. They go both ways. But it varies across the state, but the minimum is 20. You have to have at least 20.
These align with the state minimum standards.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yep.
And one of the things that we talked about in this conversation was, we have students who are graduating with 28, 30 credits,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So the high school, when I was
distinction.
principal for 10 years, we had a 26 credit diploma, and we had students graduating with 32.
Yeah.
So this is not about, those students are still going to be able to achieve above and beyond. These are the minimum, right? But what we're trying to do is close the gap for that 10% that we're already sending over to Londonderry. We're already saying, in order to graduate, you need to leave Campbell and get a different diploma versus can we offer something
Now,
else?
is that
That's
only
really the
because we
piece.
don't offer it at Campbell?
That's correct. Our diploma is 24 credits.
And when we get to
So-
slide 11, I'll talk a little bit about how many kids I think this impacts and that sort of thing. So this is the New Hampshire State Diploma. The alternate diploma, so this one's a little tricky, and that's why I kind of want to slow roll this for a year. So there's a link that goes to a PowerPoint that the state of New Hampshire put out in 2017. So already things have changed a little bit since then. We can keep kids till 22 now. But the main things about this are this. The curriculum can be modified. Alternate assessments are used. Students count towards graduation numbers. Right now, a student that just gets a certificate of attendance doesn't count in our graduation numbers. This isn't a standard high school diploma, but we can count them in our graduation numbers. They don't have to just complete it in their 4 years. They can complete it for as long as they're in the building with us. And it really only impacts about 2 students a year. This isn't something that, 15, 30 kids get. This is for students with IEPs, students with, some excessive needs when it comes to some modifications in certain areas. And again, the slideshow, we can go through more in depth at another time because it outlines a little bit more of what it looks like. But the main focus on this is it's students with IEPs. We can use alternate assessments, and we can modify that curriculum as opposed to just providing accommodations for them. Andrew.
What strain does this put on our teaching staff?
That's why I'm pushing it off for a year. I think there's going to be some front loading with our case managers, our special ed case managers. But again, with the small number of students that it's going to impact each year, I think with 8 to 10 months of front loading and really digging into it, I don't think we're going to see too much of a strain when we go to enact it. And then finally, the last one, it's really just changing the name of certificate of attendance to a goals diploma. It's skills based. It's not aligned with any of the minimum standards, but the IEP team sits down and says, we're working on these goals. Let's make sure that when they leave here, we celebrate the fact that they've worked on and accomplished these goals as they're here. And again, we're only really talking about 2 students a year at the high school that would fall into this category as well. So, things that we still need to iron out, and you'll notice I put at the end, probably a lot, The 2 main things are this, especially for the 20 credit diploma. Who goes for that? With the alternative diplomas, it's easier because there's an IEP team that sits down and makes these decisions. The 20 credit diploma is school counseling and administration. We need to sit down with a student. At the regional, we did it halfway through their 10th grade year. We had to decide what diploma track they were on. You have to sit down with the student. You have to sit down with the family. You have to sit down with counseling, and you have to say, here's our 24 credits. Here's the 20 credits. What are the reasons we think we won't be able to achieve 24? Why would we just do 20? And that's a little bit of a process. And really, it usually comes with our high math struggling students, that it may take them 3 years to finish algebra. And so just having those 2 credits of math, removing 1 of science, removing some of those electives so they can work through that more slowly, that's where we saw the most success. When we look at our students that we send to Londonderry,
They all don't have IEPs.
Correct. This year, however, a large portion of them did have IEPs. Now, whatever the diagnosis was or whatever, that's a whole other thing. But this track really is for the struggling students, the kids that just high school's not a good match for them. Mm-hmm. They want to be successful. They want to get out of here, but that traditional high schooling, and then we got to talk about how flexible can we be, and so, this can't be a June 4th decision because a senior's short a credit and a half, and we're like, we give, that can't be what this is about. It's about supporting our struggling students. It's about making sure that we have avenues for every kid in the building.
Does a school like Manchester Community College accept a 20 credit diploma?
Any
That's all I
community
care about,
community college in the state would accept a 20 credit diploma.
That's-
Some non-community colleges probably
I
accept
just-
a 20 credit diploma as well.
They
better.
accept GEDs, they accept
That's awesome.
homeschoolers with no credits.
Just want to make sure,
Right, so-
cover all my bases.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. The state calls it a minimum standards diploma, which is an unfortunate
Yeah,
name
it just
because
doesn't sound.
it's a diploma. It's a
Right.
high school state diploma. Like, just the only difference is we make you go through 4 extra credit hoops. Like that's it. Again, what does this actually look like in practice? Really, that's for that alternate diploma, and why I want to push it off from a year. I've got great parents and great resources that have kind of walked me through this. I had great conversations with the Director of Special Services at Wyndham because they do this, and so he and I have had some great conversations. But it's going to take some front loading to really understand what it looks like in practice and how we can make sure that we're doing it and doing it well. I've never given an alternate assessment in a building before. I've never been able to modify state competencies. So that's going to take some work to make sure we fully understand that. And then who owns that? Where does this extra stress come from? Making sure that I'm not burdening my staff more, type thing. And then again, there's a ton that I'm probably missing, that we'll encounter it as we come into it. But we have incredible resources within our building, within our community, and with our neighboring schools that have been more than willing to sit down and have conversations.
How does the change in curriculum in the formative summative percentages, how does that potentially impact the change in their, or the diplomas, and do you
I don't
see
think-
any impact?
I don't think it's going to impact anything along those lines.
Still have to do your work.
Yeah, and I see it more as, I think
Will there be more kids now seeking an alternate diploma to meet the minimum standards because of the changes in curriculum?
I don't think so.
I don't think we're changing any curriculum, though. You know, we changed 15% for formatives. We
right.
changed a late work policy. Our approach is always going to try to continue to adapt to get more hands-on, more real world, more student engagement. The curriculum we're going to try to always update so, you know, it's relevant to students. But we only change grading practices, and that's really just to try to hold students a little bit more accountable because they got really good at gaming the system. You know, they're kids, absolutely. So we're going to try to hold them a little bit more accountable. We're going to try to hold the teachers a little bit more accountable when it comes to making sure we're giving quality formatives, we're getting grades in on time across the board. And so it really is a great partnership within the building. And then this just allows us to have avenues for, again, we're talking a total of 9 to 11 students a year within 3 new diploma tracks potentially.
Yeah, but that could be 10% of the grade.
Correct. Yep.
But that's like I'm trying to remember.
But we had 7, so our diplomas,
Even when I worked at Campbell, there were 5 to 7 kids graduating.
our data
from
one's not for
Londonderry.
2 more weeks, but, you know, we had 7 students graduate through Londonderry this year alone. You know, and those are kids that we could have kept, you know, in service within our building and provided the supports there. It's another way for us to, you know, they're Litchfield kids from the day they start kindergarten to the day they graduate. There are Litchfield kids, whether they're a lynx, Griffin, door, or a slipper. Whatever they are. No, just kidding. Whatever cat they are, once they graduate, you know.
Dan's giving them the stink. I know.
It's a way for
Gryffindor.
us to keep. It's a way for us to keep our kids and to service our kids better. I
Well
think
played.
so. Thank you.
I'm really fascinated. I'm really interested in this. I think it's a great way to incorporate the
awesome.
feedback that we've gotten and to keep all of our students
In-house.
and in the loop and accomplishing what they can accomplish.
And you know, and that the alternate one, and again, doing more of a deep dive, learning more and more, it really allows us to stop banging our head on the wall with some of the things that we have to bang our heads on the wall with. You know, when we look at, you know, whether it's supports in the classroom, when it looks at parashort, like it gives us the flexibility to better support kids in different creative ways. And so I think, you know, at the end of the day, it's a win-win. It's a big undertaking, which again is why I've kind of slow rolled it. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, a year from now, we're looking at servicing better more students at Campbell High School.
I'm thrilled. Absolutely thrilled.
And to your point, the kids aren't gonna be able to say, you know what, I'm a junior and I
Right.
can only get to 20. At some
No.
point, you're gonna say, this is the track you're on. If you don't achieve that, you
Yeah.
don't graduate.
Yeah, a lot of discussion goes into that. That's great. Heidi, do you have any questions, comments, concerns?
No questions. I fully support this. I think it's great to keep these students in-house and provide the need for them. We can do it. So I'm glad you're taking the time to make sure it's done right and keep it up.
Awesome.
So I think the only thing you would have to make a motion on now is if we're offering a 20 credit diploma this year at Campbell High School.
So moved.
Second. And further discussion? All those in favor of adopting a 20 credit diploma? Heidi?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Aye. Peter? Andrew, oh my God, I'm sorry! Andrew,
I
there's
have
so
way
many,
more
there's a whole
hands
bunch of disciples, I like Peter and Andrew,
Move the name tag.
How about that?
and, oh, that's way better.
Aye, and thank you to all the parent involvement to make this come to
Yes.
life.
It does look like we're at the last supper, we've got Peter and Andrew, awesome.
I don't know which one that was.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I have goosebumps. Oh, all right, so where are we? Policy updates, JBAA, sexual harassment policy.
I do not have access to that.
This updated and required policy was drafted by our attorney and will be reviewed.
Which it wasn't reviewed, that wasn't reviewed today, was it?
Policy committee
Have a
on
good night.
A2.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
You see what I can do with the permissions on this, if I can do anything. No,
So the policy committee, I guess, was scheduled to meet today. I didn't recognize that there was a time change and that got moved up in the day.
it did.
Right, so I
Yeah.
didn't, I
I
didn't,
didn't get it either.
I didn't realize that. So the policy committee, I don't think actually met today.
That,
Would appear not.
the policy committee did not meet today.
Right.
I
Well, yeah, but I don't know if Heidi joined it or not, so.
No. So
Okay.
I had to I sent the request out to move the meeting because we had to meet with the fire department relative to the solar. And there's one window of time where one of the firefighters is available.
Okay.
So,
Can we push that to our next meeting?
yeah, so, but let me explain where we are and then we can have policy look
Well,
at it.
let's,
It's just the two of us right now. Oh, three of
Heidi.
us. Thanks.
oh, and Heidi, okay, so we have
Got a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Wait
exactly.
a minute, can we talk about anything?
So basically, this is one of the required policies, the rewrite of the Title IX policy, which is the sexual harassment, discrimination, and violence in Title IX policy and procedures. We sent this off to legal. You can see that it has been marked up by our attorneys, saying
That's
this
okay.
is what you need to do
don't
with
have
the
access to
policy. You don't see the,
I
Oh,
do.
no, I see it.
I do,
Sorry,
yeah.
it's in there.
you see the red line version,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, mine's red.
Yep.
And
Susan.
this also, Andrew, accomplishes renaming, because this was policy
Must be the
JBAA, and now it's being brought to ACAC, so it's aligning with the
And that was one
national
of the
code.
recommendations,
It is,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, basically, had we met today, I would have said, this is what the attorney's recommending, and they've done all the alignment with the recommended policy from NHSBA, and this is our own attorney. This went to Sol Leslie
Oh, okay.
Kidder. And they returned and said, this is what we suggest your policy be. But we're not in a rush to get this done.
Okay.
This is one that's required and we should be taking action on.
Yeah.
And if we wait till next meeting, that's not gonna be it.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to review it.
Yep.
Thank you.
But now you have the backstory on it and as to why it's here and where the comments have come from.
There were other policies identified that were missing in our review a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Where are we actioning those two? or-
So Kayla has shared with me, the next one that she worked on was
Okay.
the, oh God, what's it called? School safety program, I think, or something along that line. So that's in the pipeline.
Okay.
So we are taking action as quickly as we can
Yep.
on getting those lined up. But this is, this policy got sort of priority because there have been some legal changes that we wanted to make sure our legal team weighed in on, and that's why it bumped right through.
All right, next meeting.
Yep,
Yes.
got it.
I'll fill in for the vice chair. That brings us to school board comments.
So it sounds like iReady will be a conversation point at our next meeting in seeing test results, and we can get some of that analysis.
Is that the data, is our?
Yeah, so our next meeting is the annual, I think there's a policy that says that there will be an annual data meeting, and that is the next meeting. So the three principals will be back again with Mary Widman. They'll be presenting overall district data and then school-specific data. You're going to get everything from SAT, AP, iReady data, et cetera. So you're going to get the data snapshot of where we are as a district presented to you at the next meeting.
So
That we're gonna be able to do the comparison
Yeah.
between,
Exactly what I'm
using the on-roll example from a couple of weeks
Yep.
ago, how many kids were at, high honors compared to our standardized
So
scores?
I'm gonna have a
There's
question.
disconnect there.
How do we balance the disconnect between what the successes we're having and what we're seeing in honors and high honors versus the scores we're seeing in these tests?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make sure. The other piece is that we have our administrative retreat scheduled for Monday and Tuesday, and so we'll be working on that data piece. We started that work in the retreat back in June. we'll keep working on that, but that disconnect is something that is absolutely, we're on top of it. I mean, we're aware of it, I should say. We need to
Figure it out.
get to a point where the grades and scores in the classroom match that ability.
Thank you.
School board comments.
Oh, I'm here. I would like to give a shout out to the Campbell High School Athletic Golf Tournament. That was this past Wednesday. They made $8,000
Wow.
on, they had sponsors, and I was able to be, I called myself the social, what was I, the social coordinator? Cruise director, basically. I got a cart. Well, they weren't gonna give me a cart, but I got a cart. I had Henry get me one. And I drove around, and it was just so, and there were parents whose kids had graduated, parents whose kids don't even go to the school. It was just a fun, there were kids there. It was just so much fun. And I love doing it. I've been to, this is a third year maybe. But it was a great, I hope it gets even bigger next year. And I really am excited for the alternate diploma. I think everything I heard tonight is just moving in the right direction. And you guys know me, I'm a traditionalist. Like, do your homework. Everything I heard tonight from the high school, it just sounds awesome.
My other question, right, and I guess
Yeah.
it's for you, Mr. Totten, right, and great decision, a lot of work went into it, very clear, right, and I'm glad the board supported that. I'm assuming there's a financial impact of some sort to this too, right? If we're not sending kids to Londonderry and we're able to keep those kids in town, is there a positive to that for the district?
I don't know, how much do you pay per student to go on during night school?
Bill Hicks, when he came on board umpteen years ago, he was able to connect with state grant money that helps us support that.
Okay.
So the
Fantastic.
actual financial impact is absorbed, I believe, mostly by that grant. But
Mostly by the grant, yeah, we pay a very small percent of that, so.
That's a good question. That's all I have to say. Everyone else, huh?
I don't know if Heidi has any school board comments.
Any comments, Heidi?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, and we have the manifest up next. I know I have, I guess, manifest paperwork here at the start of the meeting,
That one's for me.
or just
Yep.
before maybe the meeting during manifest review at the beginning of the meeting. Right, I know I highlighted that we didn't get the paperwork in advance, so I haven't seen it, but it looks like,
This is from the previous one, isn't it?
no, this is from tonight.
No, I think it's
No.
new. There might be one that might have been carryover,
7/20.
but I
Okay.
think they're all new. We just had several weeks between this one and the last one, right? Because the
Got it.
last one was in the middle of July. A little bit longer time in between.
I think most of them have 3 signatures anyways.
They all do.
Not all of them.
Oh,
There's one in here, I don't know if you want to take a look at it, that has one.
oh. Tina.
Did
So
I sign it?
I can
I did not.
pass these
Is that
down.
you?
That's
Those have
Heidi.
3
These are all
signatures.
signed.
Great.
Heidi already signed this?
That must be the old one.
Thank you.
Because Heidi isn't here.
This is the old one. Okay, I'll get that in a second. And we are
And then we're closing our meeting and going into non-public.
closing our meeting and going
Yeah.
into
We already did
non-public.
that.
We already
That
did
was-
community input,
that
but
was
it-
at 8.
we have
I
some
missed
people
that,
here.
sorry.
Does anyone else have any community input?
Free Wi-Fi.
I screwed that
Thank you.
time up.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to read the language for
This is
non-public?
adjusting all the times, but that's the 8 o'clock one.
Yeah, right here.
Right there.
Sorry. Non-public, RSA 91-A.
Good night.
3, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the rehiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Yes.
Yes. All those in favor? Yes?
What's this also says D through L C citation? What's that?
I don't know.
I've never seen that before.
D through L citation? Heidi, do you see that?
I see it, I don't know what it is.
Okay,
think
so
it
we're
might
not
be
going
leftover.
into non-public for that, and
No.
we don't know what that is. Okay,
Oh, A, B, and C.
yes. All right, all those in favor?
All those in favor? Yes.
I,
Heidi?
to do a roll call.
Peter?
yes.
Yeah, roll call.
Yes.
Tina?
Aye.
Andrew?
Yes.
Thank you. We are now entering non-public.